been a while since we've done. It's been a while since we've done one of these. I'm getting rusty at this. I don't know if it's the mustache. Is it the mustache?
I don't know.
I've been slurring my words more lately, and I don't know if I'm in this prolonged episode of a stroke. And it's just like lasting quite a while.
Why does it smell like burning toast in here?
It does smell like burning toast.
I need the table already.
I told you my lower back and my side has been aching, and I'm having hot flashes, or I'm just like sweating to death, thinking I'm about to have a kidney stone attack.
Nope, it's a stroke.
Oh man, where's your heart again? I mean, every man or boy, male, whatever in my family has had a kidney stone attack. I think except for, myself and my youngest cousin, Jeremy. I don't think he's had one. But my older cousin, Jason, all three of my uncles, my father and my grandfather all had kidney stone issues. And it seemed like it was hereditary.
Yeah.
I'm 37 now, and knocking on wood, I don't even want to say it. I'm good so far.
Yep.
I'm good so far. And every time I get an ache in the side of my back, I drop everything I'm doing and I have a complete meltdown. And I'm not a hypochondriac. I know.
I understand it. I've never had a kidney stone either, and I totally understand it.
And I have a meltdown because I know, people are like, oh yeah, no, like, so like my father or whatever had kidney stones. What my story is, without going too far in depth on it, my uncle Tim, who's the youngest of my dad and his three brothers, has like the worst kidney stones. Like he's had specialists from all over the country, and maybe even had like his test results or whatever viewed, or maybe had people from overseas come see him. I don't remember all the details there, but he's been basically poked and prodded at by specialists from all over the world to figure out what on earth is going on. And obviously it starts with diet. He's been under every diet under the sun, or basically like experimented with every diet under the sun.
Yeah, restrictions and all that.
Everything.
Yeah.
And I think my father thinks it was from a traumatic. My uncle was very, like, he was an adrenaline junkie, and he was wired much like me as far as like, my BMX and all that sort of stuff. And I can't remember if it was the firework going off in his face.
Oh my God.
Or if it was when the horse kicked him in the face. Or if it was when he was skimming open water on the four-wheeler and his front axle caught the ice coming back on and he slammed his face on the ice. I can't remember. There's all sorts of these wild. They were, my father and him were setting off like old school fireworks. I mean, I don't remember if this is the late 70s or early 80s, but mortar, like a mortar. Like, and you set the fuse and you run for cover and the thing dunk, and it goes off. So it's basically a rocket out of a mortar cannon. And they had been setting them off, and Tim lit one, lit the fuse, and they jump back, and the fuse goes up underneath that thing, and they're standing there, and nothing. They kind of look at each other, nothing.
Oh no.
So Tim goes, and he goes walking over to it. And my dad's not saying anything yet, just walking over to it. Maybe he thought he was going to like kick it, or I don't know.
Yeah, kick it away from you. Or.
But instead he goes,
oh no.
And looks over into it, and it goes off.
Oh.
And it hits him point blank in the face. Basically like a shotgun blast, right? I mean, this is like a commercial grade firework. It goes off, and when it gets up into the lower atmosphere,
it's
all sorts of other ones.
Gunpowder.
Like one of those ones that goes on forever. Like there's numerous things that launch out of this thing. So he looks over into the barrel of this thing as if his wiring is all crossed, and it goes off at the moment he looks over into the barrel. And it hits him in the face, and he's not heavy set, but he was like a stocky kid. And my dad said it launched him off his feet and like 10 feet or more back. I mean, I think when I was a kid, I remember hearing like, it threw him 50 feet.
Yeah.
But off his feet.
Oh my God.
And back towards my father. And what happened was when it hit him in the face, it ricocheted off his face and back down onto the ground where it started to go off.
Yeah.
So now it's like a full-blown war zone with explosions going off and all this crazy like gunpowder smoke, and my dad can't see anything. So he's fighting his way through these like shell rounds going off to try to find his brother. He finds him laying face down amidst all these explosions going off, face down in a puddle of blood. He rolls him over, And his face is just black. Like there's no face left. It's just like black, like, point blank firework going off.
Wow.
So they drag him out from the, like, I don't know how, it makes it sound like the explosions were going on forever. And it's like this crazy war zone. He puts him over his shoulder.
Yeah,
he's like, fighting
out,
through the trenches and stuff. But he ended up in the bed of my grandfather's truck, or maybe their older brother. I don't remember. And they're rushing him to the hospital. And my dad said he remembered trying to clean his face up to find out what was going on, contusions or whatever. And his face was so messed up that if he leaned back, he choked on his blood. It was running down his throat, and he couldn't breathe. And so they leaned him forward into a towel so he didn't like bleed out. So they basically like tourniqueted his face basically. And when they got to the hospital, they went, they cleaned him up, and basically it hit him in the orbital bone right below his eye.
Yep.
And if it had been whatever, fraction of an inch, whatever, up, it would have hit him in the eye and probably would have killed him because it would have gone through his orbital socket.
Yep.
Who knows? It would have killed him, or at least blinded him and maybe some severe brain damage.
Wow.
But it hit him in the orbital, and that's what basically had enough strength to ricochet that thing back off of him onto the ground. And from what I remember hearing, his x-ray of his skull or his face looked like that windshield hit, and then it cracks all go out from it.
Like safety glass.
It like shattered.
Oh my God.
It's completely shattered. And I can't remember if that was the incident, but my father always attributed, like, it was after one of those traumatic injuries that all of a sudden his kidney stones started appearing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I wasn't sure if it was like a shock to the system so much that and I mean, anyone who knows anything about medical or biology or whatever might be like, well, no, that couldn't. But it just so happened to start after, I think it was that incident. Because my grandfather always had draft horses. He always had big stallions, like pulling horses. He had a logging team of horses. He used to pull sleds at the fair, had pulling horses, big horses. And they were reshoeing one or something. And it wasn't that you never stand behind a horse. If you have horses, you can stand behind them. I mean, you let them know you're there.
Yeah.
Like you get your hand on them. If you walk behind them, they know you're there. You're not spooking them when you've got your hand on them. And something happened. My dad was there too for this one. And they were reshoeing or doing something, trying to, I don't know if they're getting a harness on or off, or I don't know what was going on. But Tim ended up behind the horse. The horse spooked, reared up, and right in his nose. Oh, man. The thing reared up, and I'm talking like a stallion, like a big horse, and just plowed him right in the face. Well, they end up in the bathroom trying to clean Tim's face up again. And Tim's going, they've got his face down in the sink. And he's a bloody mess. Looks like a murder scene in this bathroom. And Tim goes, I want to see it. I want to see it. My dad's like, you don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. And they're trying to keep him like held down. They're trying to like just splash water up on his face and clean everything out. Tim goes, I want to see it. My dad's like, trust me, you don't want to see it. No. Well, he fights him off and looks up in the mirror and just about passes out. His nose is like filleted open and laid over on his face. Like just like laid over, just split him right down the middle of his face. And he's a horse, just pow. And so I had to go to the hospital. They sewed him up. They tried to do their best to reattach his nose and all that, which they did. But it was between a couple of those instances that he was always skimming open water on the ice, up in New Hampshire, the lakes freeze. For anyone from the South, our lakes freeze.
Yeah.
And you can go out there on them with like cars and stuff. And we have what we call bob houses. And you put little huts out there and you drill a hole in the ice. And if you're a beer drinker, unlike us, you sit there for all day with a little lure sitting down in there with a 30 rack of beer. And you sit there and you wait till the line starts to move and you pull out a minnow.
Yep.
Or so, I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a fisher. But like they used to skim the open water, like where the docks were, they had thermal heaters in the water. So the water on the docks wouldn't freeze and
even
break
where
the docks.
Water inlets were, like where the river met
exactly.
It was all open.
Yep. So, back in the 70s and 80s, even back then, people were daredevils and would skim water on sleds, mostly on snowmobiles. But Tim started doing it on his four-wheeler. And people, I mean, back then in a small town, people were like, whoa, Tim was Tim was the Evel Knievel of like my area. And they'd just be like, whoa, he'd make a pass. I mean, it was like 100 foot or more, a couple hundred feet of like open water. This is before people were just like eating sandwiches on dirt bikes on open water. People just seem to do crazy stuff nowadays. So this is pretty wild. And he'd go back and forth, and a crowd would, it would draw a crowd, and it all like, oh, I'll do it again. And so he got a little cocky with it. And one pass, as he was going across, his front axle like the front wheels dipped into the water a little bit, and he was scooting, and he caught the ice coming back on, and it just slammed the whole front of his body, just like slingshot right onto the ice, right onto his face, dislocated his shoulder or maybe both shoulders or something. It messed him all up. Well, needless to say, to this day, his nose doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. Like, he can't smell anything. It doesn't. You can't like breathe through it. I remember as a kid when we'd play basketball, like in the yard or whatever, I used to always wonder, like, why does Tim make so much noise when he breathes? That's like, oh, his nose doesn't work. Yeah. And that's why. But he always attributed it to some of those like shocks, that maybe that had something to do with the kidney stones as bad as they got. Because every man in my family's had an attack or two at one point. But what happened was Tim started producing up to 9 stones in one kidney a year. Every year would be like 9 to a dozen stones every year. And it got to the point where, some he would pass naturally, just whatever, they'd work their way down through your system, you pass them. It got to the point where he'd have to go in for a lithotripsy, or they would go in with a laser. They'd even cut him from his belly button to his spine and open him up. Or I don't know, maybe not that far, but they'd open him up and physically go in. And if they'd go in with a laser and chip away at him to like break him up, they'd put a stent in. They'd go up through your hole, go all the way up in. So as you pass the stones, it wouldn't create any scar tissue. And so they were doing all this crazy stuff, messing with diet, and nothing was working. But one kidney was always a good, clean kidney. It was just this one other one that was always producing stones. And it got to the point where, and Tim owns a towing company. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was my dad. My dad owns a towing company. It's been a long week. We're going to get to that. He owns a paving company. Yes. Like a small crew paving company. And he'd be out on a job site somewhere, and just by the way he'd start to ache, he'd know whether or not it was a hospital trip kidney stone attack, or if it was rush home, fill the tub full of boiling hot water and climb in it and sit there and just let the attack come and let it go. And then he'd pass a couple of stones or whatever, at what stage, wherever the stones were, and then go back to work. 100-degree day, paving, like whatever. Like, wow. Guy was made out of steel. And then all of a sudden, the good kidney, they found like half a dozen stones in the good kidney. And that was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And now both kidneys produce numerous stones every year. Like, they just can't stop. They're just like stone producing machines. They just can't get them to stop. And he's like done everything, all sorts of diets, all sorts of crazy stuff. He's had them for so long and so aggressively that he could tell when he passed his last stone, and the stent that they'd put up through your pee hole, and however far it goes up in there, insanity.
All the way.
There used to be a knot tied on, like the string would have like a knot tied at the end, so you could actually like pull it out. You untie it and then you pull it out. Well, Tim would know when he passed his last stone. He would just know, like, there's no more in there. They're done. So he would remove his own stent at home. He'd untie that and he would pull the tube down out of his body through his pee hole, out of his body.
No.
Well, he arrived at the doctors for a checkup, basically to get the stent removed, but he went in for like a checkup and a stent removal. Then he drops his pants and the doctor is horrified that the knot isn't there. Oh my God, what? And Tim's like, oh no, it's not in there. He's like, what? And he goes, yeah, I removed it. He's like, you can't do that. And Tim's like, well, I was done passing my stones, so I did. Like, there's no reason for it to be in there anymore. So from there on out, they stopped putting the knot. They stopped putting they wouldn't let him. Yep. They stopped doing whatever to it to allow him to pull it himself. So he'd have to go back in and have them do it with like sterile equipment and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Safety.
Unbelievable. So anyway, my dad's had a couple bad ones. He's had a couple bad ones recently. But as I told you before we started recording that, he's a firefighter and he's in his late 60s. Mm-hmm. And he works just as hard as like the teenagers do. And they were fighting like a brush fire out in the wilderness somewhere. Well, not wilderness, but it was a brush fire, forest fire basically. Yeah. Brush fire. Well, I don't think of a forest fire. I think of like the fires in California. But he didn't drink enough water, and the next day he had a massive kidney stone attack, and he attributed it to possibly being dehydrated.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. So my side, my back has been achy the last like hour or two, and I've been like, my face has been hot. Like I'm not a hypochondriac, but I'm like thinking like, is this it? Oh boy, I should sit down. Like, what should I do? Should I I'd freak out if I was around my dad. I'd be vocalizing it like, I don't know, on my side. And I've got lots of aches and pains from BMX and lots of injuries. But whenever that starts, I start to have a meltdown because you have no control. It's
it's
coming.
You can do,
and that's what my dad says. My dad's like, you might as well chill out because if it's coming, it's coming. There ain't nothing you can do to stop it. And I'm like, I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse.
I know.
So as we speak right now, I'm feeling okay.
Okay.
But it's something that's always kind of horrified me. But feeling okay so far. Well, you're here, dude. You're in Chattanooga.
I'm here. Chattanooga.
For a second time in the last week. We are, I need to talk about these.
Yes.
If you're watching on YouTube, we're sipping some cold brew out of these really cool glasses. And I need to give a huge thanks to my girlfriend because she collects she buys and sells, but mostly collects 1960s or anything mid-century modern. She loves that kind of stuff. And as do I, but as anyone who knows me well enough knows that all my money gets sunk into all the automotive stuff and some musical equipment and just a few other things. But I don't have like a mid-century modern like furnished house. I would love one, but Kayla has a lot of that stuff. Her place is like all mid-century modern.
A lot of cool stuff.
And we're always on the hunt for stuff. We're always on the hunt. And I think it was while my dad was here, we were at like this big antique place that we had never been to in the Chattanooga area, and I found some of those atomic fish glasses. There was only 3 of them, so it wasn't a full set. And she was like, I don't know, it's not a full set. And I'm like, look how cool these things are. So I talked her into buying them. Well, at the same vendor in that same booth were 6. And I know if you're watching on YouTube, you can't see them closely enough. I'll post them on my Instagram so you guys can see them. There was a set of 6 of these 1960s era, 70s, maybe, 60s.
Yeah, 60s.
Era.
The big thick glass on the bottom.
Yep. With cab overs on them. There's 2 47 to 53 Chevys on them, but they're road tractors. And there's 2 cab overs. There's a cab over with a low bed. They've all got trailers. They've all got equipment trailers on them. And is that green and gold?
Mm-hmm.
Is it green?
Yeah.
I'm colorblind. Amazing set of glasses. And they wanted like $40 for all 6 of them. And I was like, I don't know. I got like a lift to buy for the shop. And I was making all these excuses. And she bought them for me. She was like, we're buying them. They're worth $40. They're worth much more. And now that they're here, this is the first time drinking out of them actually. And they are so cool. Because if anyone listening doesn't know, I actually have a 5-window 1952 Chevy cab over. And 2 of these trucks on this glass are the long nose versions of that truck. And so cab overs hold a special place in my heart. We'll have to talk about the cab over we saw in Helen as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, to get caught up to Helen, and I'm glad you're here because this is like already been a more calm and collected like conversation, even though I've done most of the talking. But to do this alone,
yeah, no, I understand,
would just be super difficult. But to get caught up before we get to you and you being here and Helen, Georgia, and Alpine Volks Fair and all that. If you've been subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you've been on the Instagram, the new car was a one-owner 1968 early model, no headrest, W108 Mercedes. And it's a pretty incredible car. It's a fuel-injected car. It's a power window car. Basically a one-owner car. Came from California. They kept it in a garage in California its whole life. It was a customer of our friend, Sutton Morris's, and he's got a German, but more angled towards Mercedes and BMW and Porsche, vintage and modern shop out in Walnut Grove, California. And you and I have been out there a few times.
Yeah, it's on the YouTube.
Kayla and I have been out there a few times.
Yeah.
And it was one of his customers. And what happened was I sold the Century, got the Century gone, and I immediately called Sutton and said, hey, man, I'm in the market now. If anything comes through the shop that you don't have the space or the time for, please let me know. And a couple of days later, he called me and he said, hey, man, got a customer here, bought this thing basically brand new. I think he bought it. I shouldn't say I think. I know because I spoke to him. He bought it off of his best friend. His best friend bought this car in 1968. And in like 72 or something, he bought it off of him. And they're still next door neighbors and they're still best friends to this day. So it's a one owner car.
It's basic. Yeah. I mean, one family car.
Yes, exactly. And they were just ready to sell it. It had sat for quite a while in their garage. They wanted the space. They didn't drive it or enjoy it as much anymore. They took it to Sutton. He did a bunch of mechanical and, or I shouldn't say mechanical, a lot of ignition work. He did like plugs and wires, and I don't know what else he did before I bought the car. And they were just like, are you interested in the car? And Sutton's like, no, but I know someone who is.
Yeah.
So he put me in touch with him, and we made a deal. The guy was really easy to work with, and I had Sutton do about $1,000 worth of work to the car just to make, because I thought about driving that car cross country.
Yeah.
I thought about driving it. And the timeline between purchasing the car and Alpine Volks Fair in Helen, Georgia was fast approaching, or narrowly escaping, I should say. And I thought, boy, I don't know. Like trying to drive that thing cross country, well, it'll take some logistics. I want to make sure that car's sorted out enough for the drive. I want to make sure I've got contingency plans in place if we're broke down in the middle of New Mexico or Colorado somewhere.
I feel that.
Yes, we'll also get to that. And so I opted not to. And this was right at the beginning of the diesel price just skyrocketing. So I thought, man, I'm going to pay an arm and a leg to get this thing shipped. So I started searching around for quotes. And I think I ended up going with, oh boy, who did I end up going with? Oh, I went with a company that Sutton had used. That's what it was. And they wanted like $1,600 open trailer, California to Chattanooga. And I'm like, send it.
Not bad at all.
Get it on the trailer.
Yep.
It wasn't a month earlier I sent the 6 Series, my E24, out to Sutton's shop to start its next chapter. Hopefully we'll start on that soon for $1,500 open trailer. And now the fuel was skyrocketing to $100 more. I'm into it.
Yeah.
I'm into it. Because I'd gotten quotes for well over $2,000 for open trailer. So by the time it got here, I had about 2 weeks, barely 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a week and a half to get it done in time for Alpine Volks Fair. And to get it done, I mean, build air suspension. And I decided to build everything from scratch. I decided to like build all the cups and the mounts and the brackets and all that.
As you always do.
Usually with a little bit more time. Like 4 weeks.
I was going to say, yeah, like a month.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you were helping me with the 2F Polo last year for Alpine Volks Fair. And that was a last second build that just came together in time.
Yep.
Basically drove it for the first time, put it in the trailer and came down to Georgia. So another shout out to Phil from Twisted Images. He makes a bolt-in kit for the W108s. And I could too if I really wanted to. My 1960 Fintail that I did 10 years ago, same suspension. I helped do a friend of mine's a 66 108 in England. I flew over there in 2015, 2 days before Players.
Right.
With bags and American standard hardware. And we built that car, or quote unquote built. We built the suspension for that car in 48 hours and drove 3 hours to Players Classic, which was just a complete like rush.
Yeah.
11th hour type stuff. So for this car, it had been a while since I'd done one. But this car, I was like, well, for the time I have before Alpine Volks Fair, I could buy Phil's kit and just bolt everything in and get the car done with time to spare. Or I utilize the YouTube channel, which I'm really trying to focus on and like drive content or create content on and just build my own kit. So I go for that and immediately wish I hadn't, because now I'm trying to find where the closest steel yard is in Chattanooga. I get some materials, I get some pipe, I get some other things. You know, I've got my bandsaw, welder, and a few other things set up in the shop. I don't have the lift or a plasma cutter yet. And I get it done. There's a few videos, obviously, on the YouTube channel of that. And I get it done literally within like a day before we leave. Because you show up a few days before we leave.
Yeah.
You drive your Mercedes 190 down.
Yeah.
And before we get too deep into the Helen project, because I want to talk about the other new project too before we get into Helen content.
Yep.
We get the car done and we get it basically done. And we'll pick up from there in a minute. But before you showed up, in the first week I had the car, basically the 1 week before you showed up, my father came down to pick up a truck I helped him buy to take home to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
He bought a Southern 3rd gen Dodge with a 24 valve Cummins in it. High mileage truck, but Southern truck its whole life.
Yeah.
Rust free, perfect truck.
Yeah.
So he had flown down to drive that home, but he had to do a U-joint in the front, wheel bearings, and like something else before the drive home. So he was here for a little bit. And I had taken delivery of the Mercedes the day before he showed up. So he was around to help me like pull the stock suspension out. We spent one night pulling all the stock suspension out. And this is crazy. It's so crazy. Let me take a sip of this coffee real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, this Stoke is good.
Stoke
cold brew. It's the not too sweet with a little splash of the Cold Stone like sweet creamer. Yep. Just a splash of it. I'll drink it.
Makes the difference.
I'll drink it as it comes. It's real good. But let's talk about how, when my dad was here, the absolutely wild escapade turned out. So he's helping me pull the suspension out of the Mercedes. It's like the day one of the Mercedes build, basically. And I start getting tagged. Our friend Gavin Lyle
Yep.
Tags me in a post of a car that's for sale that he shared on Facebook. So he had like shared the sale ad and made his own caption and tagged me and said, "Hey John, this is right up your alley." And I looked at it, and then 3 more tags come in.
Yeah,
and I get people.
One of them was me on Gavin's post.
That's
and I was
right.
like, this is another beetle pan project.
That's exactly what Gavin said. He's like, "Is this a beetle pan contender?"
Yeah.
And then Zach DePiero texted me. He goes, "Hey man, have you seen this?" And he sent me some screenshots. A few other people tagged me or reshared it on their Facebook. I had a couple of people DM me the link on Instagram. Like, "Hey, did you see this thing? Did you see this thing?" Oh my gosh. It's a 1960, same year as my Beetle. Oh, my BMW.
Yep.
Same year as the BMW 700. It's a 1960 Auto Union 1000 SP, which is basically a DKW. It's an Auto Union DKW 1000 SP. Now, this car is a fintail car, much like the BMW 700, and much like my same year fintail I had, the Mercedes 220 SB. So 1960, the Germans were doing a lot of fintail stuff, kind of trying to emulate the American fintail hype, basically, in smaller ways. Mm-hmm. So this car has a fintail to it, and it's an insane car, because I'll be completely honest, I had never heard of this car before. And I thought I had a pretty good handle on rare car like vocabulary,
right,
or like just like documentation. I feel like I had a good chart of like what cars and where and what year and how crazy they were, because that's what I like. And I'd never heard of a 1000 SP before.
Yeah, same here. I'd heard of the Junior. I'd heard of
3=6.
Yeah.
The little van. Some of the Auto Union cars. Yeah, the Junior's kind of ugly. I'm not really into the Junior.
Yeah.
I almost bought one in Vermont a few years ago.
I remember that one too.
Yeah, they wanted like $600 for it or something crazy.
Yeah.
But never really got sold on those. Well, this, I love the fact that it's an Auto Union. Like pre-Audi stuff is incredible, because they were still using the 4-ring Audi logo before it was Audi. And I know like AU and Audi is Auto Union, and then it's like Deutsch something. I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me.
Like that, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Audi, the first 2 words in Audi were Auto Union, and then DI was something else. And I don't know what those words were. But all that stuff fascinates me, because it's like early, pre-Audi stuff, pre-Volkswagen Audi group stuff. And this 1960 was when Daimler-Benz owned Auto Union. So it's technically like Mercedes ownership.
Closer to Mercedes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a real bizarre car. And although a lot of the early Auto Union stuff really gets me buzzing, I love the 3=6. That's a cool rig. But a lot of the early Auto Union stuff is like kind of ugly. I'm not really that into that stuff.
Yeah, they did a lot of the like box vans and like the Grimace vans.
Yes.
Panel vans, stuff like that. But.
Yep. And I like those. Mm-hmm. The cars were kind of weird. Just not my style, I should say. Just not my style. And this, like looking at photos of this, I was like, whoa, this thing looks amazing. It has like, it's known as the baby Thunderbird.
It's what it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like a 57 Thunderbird. Like the fins and the taillights all have 57 Thunderbird look to them. And the roof definitely has like Mercedes features. The front end has like Sunbeam Tiger or DB5 Aston Martin kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
It's got a hood scoop. Very unique looking car, but beautiful. Like I really like the way it looked. Even, and obviously it's rusty. It's like a barn find, like swamp find, forest find looking thing. And everybody that sent it to me was right. It's right up my alley. And it set me off. I'm like, man, guy had like 6 photos of the car, and I was kind of losing my mind about it. And I quickly like kind of Googled him and kind of learned a little bit about the car. And he wanted, I mean, everyone saw it listed. He wanted like $2,500 for the car.
Yeah.
It hasn't run in decades. It's mostly there. It's mostly there. And so I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, this thing would be pretty cool. So before I go into like all about the car and like what it's powered by and all that stuff, I decide I ought to just message him. This thing's probably going to go real fast. From everything I could gather on a quick search online, these things are nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Crazy
rarity.
Exactly. Like very low number. Like they built the car from 58 to 65. So that's an 8-year production span. 58,
just about,
9, 60, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 8-year production span. They only built 5,000 of them. That's it.
Crazy.
What we figure out? 600 a year. There was like 600 and something a year that they made, and that was it. So super rare car. And I'm thinking Auto Union guys are going to scoop this thing up in a heartbeat. And all of a sudden I've got the itch. The Mercedes is on jack stands with the factory suspension pulled out, and I need to be going. We had 1 week, less than a week before Helen Volks Fair, or Helen, Georgia. I'm trying to think of when that was. Yeah, it was the week before you showed up.
Yeah.
It was. And holy cow, it all came together so fast. So I decided to message him. And I said, hey man, I'm interested in the auto union. I'm down in Chattanooga. It's like a 10-hour drive away. He's up near Cleveland in Ohio.
Not close.
Nope. And close enough. Close in California.
Yeah.
Close enough to be like, I will come and get this thing.
Yeah.
So I said, hey man, wanted to know if you still had it. I know you just posted it today. I'm really into these cars. And I sent him some photos of the 700.
Right.
I'm like, just so you know, if it's any consolation, because I didn't know this guy from a hole in the wall. I said, if it's any consolation, I would plan to put this car back on the road again.
One way or another.
Not use it for parts.
Yeah.
Put it on the road again and drive it. And I sent him photos of the 700 and the Corvair and basically said, this is what I'm into.
Yep.
And he was like, wow, man, that thing's so cool. And he responded just the way I hoped he would.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what kind of guy he was. And so he's like, wow, that thing's amazing. Yes, I still have it. And this was a Thursday, right? I had messaged him earlier in the day and it took him a few hours to get back to me. Kayla, my father, and I are out to dinner when he finally messages me back. And this is Thursday night. And he's like, yeah, I still have it. And I'm like, he got back to me. He still has it. He's into the 700. I told my dad, we're sitting out to dinner. And I'm like, what do I do? If he still has this, do you want to go? Because he's got to drive his truck back to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
22 hours back to New Hampshire in a few days. This was nearing the end of his stay with me. And I'm like, would you be into this? Because Kayla had work Friday and Saturday. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I can wait till next week to go get this thing. This thing might be gone.
It'll be gone.
If anyone has one in America, they're going to, $2,000. There's no parts available anywhere for these things. So I'm trying to act fast. I'm like, would you be into going? And he's like, yeah.
Your dad is always down for these adventures.
And I want to say I don't know why, but I do know why. I do. But when I think back, on my childhood, he's a late 60s muscle car, GM specifically, muscle car guy. And I'm often left field, you want to help me go to the woods and extricate this and resurrect this BMW 700 that you've never even heard of, and it's not even a car anymore. And we brought his tractor, and also we brought everything out there.
Yep.
It's monumental effort stuff. And now he's in Chattanooga with a long drive home, and I'm like, do you want to go for a 20-hour round trip to go get this junk car? It's a really rare junk car though. It's no one's ever seen one before, and I've never even seen one, let alone heard of one. I've never heard of one, let alone seen one. And he's like, yeah, you want to take my truck? And I'm like, you've got to drive that all the way to New Hampshire. Are you sure? Because mine, I've got the OBS, and I'm like, it could do the drive just fine.
Yep.
But he's just like, I didn't buy it to just get me home to New Hampshire.
Right.
I bought it to drive it. So
that's awesome.
So I called Mason. I tried to get all this stuff lined up. I didn't want to drag my enclosed trailer all the way up there. So I got in touch with Mason because he's been letting me use his open aluminum trailer. And it'd be much easier to pull up there. It doesn't have a winch on it, but it'd be a super light trailer to take up there. So he's like, yeah, man, no problem. Come and get it. No problem.
Yeah.
So now that I know I've got the trailer acquired and we've got my dad's truck, my dad's willing to go. Unfortunately, Kayla couldn't make it. I know she loves this stuff. She would have loved to go up there and be a part of that. I text him. I'm like, hey man, what's your availability this weekend? Oh, he goes, when can you make it? I'm like, what's your availability tomorrow? Or Saturday? And he's like, oh, Sunday would work better. And Sunday, Kayla had Sunday off. My dad was leaving Sunday or Monday. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. Saturday would work for me. And I'm like, fingers crossed. He's like, yeah, Saturday would work. I mean, Saturday would work best for me. He's like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, when do you think you'd hit the road? And so I ended up calling him and I said, we're going to leave tomorrow in the morning. This was Thursday night still. We're home at this point.
Yeah.
And I said, send me your address. And he goes, we're talking cash, right? I'm like, we're bringing a trailer. I said, this is 10 hours away. We're coming ready to go.
Right.
No games.
Yeah, we're not looking at it. We're coming to pick the car up.
Let's talk when we get up there about logistics, but we're coming ready to play. So in the morning, we went down to Dalton. The Mason's trailer is an hour south of here. Went down to Dalton, got the trailer, got food, Oakwood Cafe.
Of course, as
Shout
you do.
out to Oakwood.
As you do.
And we hammered all the way. I mean, through a monsoon, through tornado warnings, mega hail.
Yep.
It was a treacherous, and I mean, I've driven in some weather. It was a treacherous drive up there. We hammered up about 10 hours all the way up just about to Cleveland, got a hotel, stayed the night at 8 a.m. the next morning. He was like a mile or two down the street off the highway. And we met up with him at 8 in the morning. His name's Brett. Cut from the same cloth I am.
Yeah.
He's a year older than me. Seemed much older for like the stuff he's acquired. But he's got, man, you could do a podcast episode on just the stuff this guy has. So he's in the steam engines. So he was in the hit and miss stuff, but he's like, too many people have that stuff. So I'll get into steam engine stuff. So he's in the steam engine stuff. He's got a turbine powered tractor. He's got a Euro W111 Mercedes coupe, manual car, 4-on-the-floor car. He's got a 60 C1 Corvette. Man. He's got some rare Thunderbird, like some rare optioned early Thunderbird or something. He's got a bunch of crazy stuff. And he's got a Cummins swapped OBS truck that he did himself with a ZF5 in it. And like, he had some cool stuff. So we show up and this thing's sitting in the middle of his yard, muddy yard, no pavement. Like it had been raining. So it's kind of a mess. And I'm like, oh man, I cannot believe I'm looking at this car. And now the whole drive up there, I'm thinking, because I've got a 1970 Beetle back home. I've got a Beetle pan. I've got my Corvair parts car and I've got a Corvair motor. And I'm telling my dad as we're going up, I'm like, man, I wonder if this thing could go on a Beetle pan and a Corvair motor could be put in it. So it could be like a 6-cylinder powered Beetle pan car. Because I'm expecting this to look like the 700.
Yeah.
Nothing left of the undercarriage.
Exactly.
I mean, he did say in the listing that it was pretty solid. But I'm thinking, where are you going to find, how are you going to rebuild parts for this car? Suspension parts, engine parts. I'm thinking, we say slap it on a Beetle pan.
Yeah.
Anyone who's done that.
Right.
It's far more involved.
Yep.
But I'm thinking Beetle pan and maybe Corvair power plant.
Super cool idea.
I mean, it would be incredible.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you Corvair motor swap a Beetle, you got to lose the rear apron, the trunk, all that stuff, or the hood, because those last two cylinders and fuel pump and all that stuff stick way out.
A lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this Audi looked like, or Auto Union looked like it had a pretty big trunk. So I'm thinking, man, I bet a Corvair motor would fit in there just fine. And so we're going up there brainstorming all these things before we even see it. So we get under it, and it's a frame car. So it's a body on frame, and it's solid.
Crazy.
You've been under it.
Yeah.
It's super solid. Not only are the sills intact, but the pinch weld all the way down the rockers are there. And my dad and I had to build the rockers for the 700 from like flat sheet metal.
I mean, cars on the street in New Hampshire look worse from 2015 than this thing looked underneath.
Yep, it's got a couple holes in the floor, but that's from window seals going bad and water sitting in it, But it's pretty solid. So now I'm thinking, oh boy. And even my dad goes, it'd be too bad to cut this frame up to just put a Beetle pan under it. I'm like, I know. So, we're still looking at it. We haven't even done a deal yet. And I'm thinking, it's rough. And now I'm thinking about spending $2,500. And I'm in the middle of this Mercedes project, and I'm thinking, I don't have a lift back home. I'm very well in touch with reality as to how much of a project this really is with what I've got here and not working in my dad's shop back home in New Hampshire.
Right.
So I'm thinking, oh man, like, how long is this thing going to sit around? Am I ever going to get to it? Do I pass on it? Then I'm thinking, oh, my dad and I hauled the trailer all the way up here. I brought cash. This whole run, I'm thinking, man, I'm not locked into buying it, but I'm feeling that way. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I got this overwhelming wave of, I'm envisioning the 700 laid out on an open trailer and this Auto Union laid out on like motorsport wheels behind it laid out.
Yes.
And then I'm thinking like these two same year German fintail cars that no one's ever seen, the 700, the 1000, they're super rare cars. And I'm thinking, no, this is it. This, like, you don't go look for another one.
No.
Two guys in the United Kingdom apparently were fighting for the car for parts apparently. And he was like, I don't really want to deal with the shipping. I'd really rather not see it get parted out.
Right.
He goes, but I know that's more than likely what it would do, or what its fate would be a parts car, because it's got good bones, but it needs everything else.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, I'm here. I can put my hands on this car, and we got a trailer, and I've got enough cash in my pocket. So we worked out a deal, and I own it, and I'm still like buzzing. And we get the thing on the trailer, and we get home, and so now it's out front. I've done the YouTube video, which surprisingly the most trending YouTube video I've done on the channel yet.
Killing it.
So appreciate everybody's support there. But I am like, my head is just buzzing with ideas. And I will do like a full podcast episode about this car, like more in depth, but it's a 3-cylinder, 2-stroke car. which is so cool. It's a 3-cylinder, 2-stroke, front-wheel drive. Radiator is behind the motor, so it's water-cooled. No water pump. It's thermo-cooled. Mm-hmm. It's a coil on plug, coil per cylinder motor with a bizarre freewheeling transmission. And anyone who knows anything about 2-stroke cars will understand a freewheeling transmission. But for anyone else, with a 2-stroke, you add the oil to your fuel. So there's no oil pan or oil pump or anything like that. You actually put, for however many gallons of gas you're going to put in the car, you put the respective amount of, or the appropriate amount of oil in with it. And then the engine is lubricated by the oil in the fuel itself.
Yeah.
So what happens is if you're heading downhill, and I know you and I have already talked a ton about this.
Yeah.
But for anyone listening, when you're decelling downhill, you normally are engine braking and you're way up in the RPMs, but you're off the throttle. So in this case with this motor, if that's what this did, you'd burn the motor out because you're revving the motor out by decelling, but your foot's off the throttle, so you're not giving the engine any oil.
Right.
Which means it's not being lubricated and it would burn up.
Right.
So they designed these freewheeling transmissions, so when you decel down hills, it basically coasted and it wouldn't over rev the engine, and you could like stay on the throttle in order to like lubricate the engine. So I've never had one of those apart. Who knows?
Who has?
So it's got some sort of fluid coupler.
It has to, yeah.
Like my Mercedes, my high-jack Mercedes did. So rather than a torque converter, it's got this fluid coupler that acts like a torque converter.
Acts like a centrifugal clutch.
It allows you to come to a stop in gear, and then when you apply the throttle, it slips or it doesn't slip, but it like comes together and lets you drive away.
For 1960.
1960.
That's insane.
And Mercedes was using the hydrak system in the pontons in the 50s before the fintail. And from what I remember, 1960 was the last year that Mercedes worked with hydrak or worked with the hydrak system.
Yeah.
And it's the only year they put it in the fintail. So my 60 Mercedes was quite a special car because it was a hydrak. But that's what this car has. But the Mercedes would decel, it would engine brake. But since this is a 2-stroke car,
I was going to say,
it won't do it.
4-stroke with normal oiling.
Exactly. And this doesn't have an oiling system.
It may have oil in the bottom of the engine with like splash.
That's right. You know what I mean? That makes sense.
But that's probably it. As far as the cylinder, there's no oil. Exactly. It's just the fuel.
Exactly. So it's a bizarre setup. And that being said, since I love bizarre stuff, I would love to keep this car 3-cylinder, 2-stroke, front-wheel drive. I would love to, right? I mean, the goal, all right, let's talk about the goal, because a lot of people on the YouTube channel, I mean, YouTube's a dumbster fire.
Of course.
Everyone's like, give it to someone with a better IQ. It needs to be restored. And it's like, but you haven't, yes.
It'd just be another restored car.
That too.
In a museum.
That too. Yeah. So for me, I'm like, I love keeping things as original as possible, but also modifying them heavily, but like leaving the body the way you found it and
leaving the story.
But like, I get all the arguments and all the counter arguments. Like, so I get it's so rare that it deserves to be restored. Yes, I understand that.
Yep.
You're right. Maybe not about the IQ thing, but maybe, probably. but my retort to that would be, it needs so much. Like, there's so much body through rust in some places or whatever. It needs so much that a full restoration would be a 6-figure job.
And how many years it would take to find all the parts.
Right. So then that counter would be, well, then give it to somebody who has the funds to do that. Because my opinion is, I've never seen one sell for, well, I mean, we only have a few examples, but one sold for like $30,000 in the last few years. Right. So you put $100,000 into a restoration for a $30,000 car.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's people out there that have the money that are willing to do that because they just want to put it in their collection and restore it. They're like, whatever, I've got that money, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put $100,000 into a $30,000 car at the end. I'm going to put however much money I need to do all the work myself, minimal, hopefully, into a $2,500 car to make it a $30,000 one-of-a-kind car.
Yes.
Or whatever,
exactly.
Something like that. So I understand all the arguments, but people who are all about it, who are like, can't wait to see what you do with this, because they see the Corvair, they see, the Corvair, roof chopped, body dropped, on its pan, 1960 700, with a tubular chassis, on a Beetle pan. Now this Auto Union, what is this one going to be? So it's like, it's obviously going to be low. I'm going to body drop it. It's going to lay frame, lay body.
Which most of the comments, that's what people want to see.
Which I'm happy about, because that's what I want to do. Like
that's what you're gonna do.
The rear fender has no arch; it's like flat.
Yeah.
It's gonna suck a wheel and a tire up into that thing like
no lug nuts.
Crazy. Yeah, it's going to tuck all the lug nuts. It's a 4x100 car too, just like the 700 was in 1960, which I think is amazing. So if I keep, I think I'm going to have to redo like spindles and hubs and stuff, but if I keep it 4x100, I'll have all the wheel options.
Oh, yeah.
So my plan right now, and this may change numerous times once I get into it, once I find out where the brick walls are, like where I have to like replan or restructure the whole idea. I want to keep it 3-cylinder 2-stroke. And I know that seems futile by the way there's no auto union parts out there. I've talked to friends of ours in Germany. They're like, never even seen one.
Yep.
Never even seen one. Can't help you. I have no idea where they are. I hear that the Wartburgs had the same engine in them, if not very similar. And I've heard that other auto union cars had this 3-cylinder 2-stroke engine in it.
Was Wartburg Russian?
German. I believe so.
Okay.
I should Google that. I should have some notes about that.
No worries.
But I think
Didn't
it was
mean
German.
to put you on the spot.
No, I think it was German. And actually, if I pull this up, I might be able to find one of the comments. Let me see here. Somebody mentioned a German engine company that put motors in that car. Let me see. It's right here somewhere.
Yeah.
Right here. Okay, so this guy says, this is the Duke Luke Garage, and I don't know. This is just a comment on YouTube. I don't know if this is accurate or not. He says the drivetrain setup in that was manufactured by the same company that supplied the Wartburgs back then. Can't remember the name of the motor manufacturer, but they supplied motors for 3 different car manufacturers, Auto Union and Wartburg being 2 of them. Now, I think the third one started with a D, because I think I remember seeing somewhere in here too that someone was talking about some other early 3-cylinder 2-stroke German car that started with a D, and I could probably, obviously DKW was that car, so it was someone different than that. Yeah, I'm kind of cycling through. I feel like I'd read a comment, but I won't spend too much time looking here. Yeah, it should be noted that they were not necessarily coach built, but underneath Daimler-Benz and Auto Union, Bauer made the body of the car.
No way.
Yeah. So it's a Bauer car.
I didn't even know that until right now.
Oh, you didn't see the plate under the hood?
No.
So there's a serial plate, like a VIN plate with the B, with the circle with the B in the middle. It says Bauer Motors on it.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Much like the early E24s were Karmann cars. Like Karmann bodied cars.
Yep.
So these were built by Bauer. Yeah, and this guy, Balthazar from Munich.
Yeah.
Who we both know.
Yep.
He works for BMW corporate. Balthazar said, this car is 100% you and about 1,000 times cooler than the Mercedes, I have to admit. The W108. He's got no filter.
I know.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like it. He tells it how it is, or how he thinks it is. He says, German internet says there were 5,004 coupes and 1,640 roadsters made at the Bauer factory, known from BMW 2002 and the E21 convertibles. So apparently Bauer made the 02 and E21 convertibles in Stuttgart. So this car was built in Stuttgart at the Bauer factory. So about the motor, about the actual story of the motor, there are some avenues. I could look at some Wartburgs, other DKW cars. I can search there. But time and time again, even Brett, who I bought the car from, said that a lot of these cars were in Argentina. Now, not the 1000 SP necessarily, but 3-cylinder 2-stroke powered auto unions.
Yep.
Now, obviously, if you're a history nerd, you know that a lot of Germans at the end of World War II made their way to Argentina.
Yes.
Whether or not Hitler did, because a lot of people say that he did, who knows?
Yep.
But what is fact is a lot of Germans made their way to Argentina after World War II, which means a lot of German infrastructure went there as well.
Yep.
German cars, German everything. So even if it's just people living there throughout the years that wanted German cars. So apparently there's a lot of auto unions in Argentina. We know some friends in Argentina.
Yeah.
I know a few, but you and I met a young man named Marcelo, and I should probably talk about that real quick because it's a really cool story.
That is cool.
So the rotiform trip, the always broke rotiform trip last summer that you and I did in the Mark 3.5 Cabrio, Carl Taylor's Cabrio. We left LA and we were doing a rotiform LUDWICK'S Garage pop-up meet trip across America, basically. And the first one was going to be at Sutton's shop in Walnut Grove. Mm-hmm. So we made our way up there and we were having the pop-up meet and we were hanging out, talking with people. And this guy walks up to me and says, basically, he introduces himself. He's like, hey man, my name's Marcelo. I'm from Argentina. I've been here in Northern California in this area since COVID, just to be, somewhere other than Argentina.
Visiting a friend, I think.
But he'd been there for months.
Yep.
He'd been up there for months to kind of escape Argentina and just be up, in America for a while. And he said, I've followed you on Instagram for years and I'm from Argentina. He's like, he made sure I knew how far away he's from. I mean, that's where you sail to head to Antarctica.
Yeah.
And now he's here. He goes, I've followed you on Instagram for years. I'm now in Northern California. And now I hear that you are putting on a show or a get together like 30 minutes from me. He goes, and I cannot believe that we're all hanging out here right now.
Yeah.
So it kind of blew me away. And so we hung out and we chatted or whatever. So anyway, fast forward, we've stayed in touch. He's got a really cool E24, a CSI car, and he's a car nerd. He does some really cool stuff with cars. So now I get this auto union, and I hear from Brett, who I bought the car from, and other people on the internet saying there's a lot of auto union stuff in Argentina.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about reaching out to Marcelo. And before I do, he reaches out to me and goes, because I said in the YouTube video, I hear there's stuff in Argentina. Yeah. And he goes, hello, you have a friend in Argentina. Yeah. And he's back there now.
Yep.
So we actually spoke on the phone and talked about this whole thing. And he goes, yes, it'd be amazing. He goes, I obviously know your vision. You're going to go very low. If it's Beetle Pan, that'd be great. He goes, but it'd be really cool to keep the 3-cylinder motor in it. I think I can help. He knows of some people in the area that rebuild those motors. And he's talking about the currency exchange and how cheap it is to the US dollar right now. And so we're basically trying to brainstorm this whole thing where maybe I go there, first of all, an excuse to go to Argentina and film a YouTube episode of going there to source auto union parts, which would be incredible. And Marcelo's like, stay at my place, come. I'll pick you up at the airport. I've got a room, no problem. So I'm like, oh, well, this is going to happen. But he thinks that we may be able to figure out getting a motor, rebuilding a motor and a transmission, there, hopefully, with those parts available, and then just creating them up and shipping them up here, which would be incredible.
And just swapping them out.
Then all I got to worry about is putting everything back together, wiring, all that stuff can come later. But getting a running motor engine transmission set up in the car and then building around it from there.
Yeah.
Because as you've already seen, it's got a bizarre suspension setup in it.
Crazy suspension. But we've talked about some solutions with it. Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's got a transverse leaf spring in the front and a transverse leaf spring stack in the back. The back is just a beam with spindles on it.
Yep.
And shock mounts, just like a Mark I Volkswagen. So I think that if you get rid of that leaf spring stack in the back, that acts like your panhard bar almost.
Yeah.
Although it's
mounting points for it.
Mounting points, yeah. I mean, obviously the panhard bar mounts to your body and keeps your beam straight.
Yeah.
But that keeps everything held in the car. But the way the floor is set up, that beam can go way up
There's
in there.
A big channel for that leaf.
Way up in there. So if I get rid of the leaf and put the beam there,
yep.
We got the rear somewhat sorted out. Yeah. Way up in there.
Yeah.
The front's going to be kind of weird. It's got a lower A-arm, and where it mounts to the spindle or the knuckle, that comes up and mounts to the leaf spring stack, and there's a tie rod mount that comes off of it. And it's got this weird kingpin set up in the front. And then the axle, since it's front wheel drive, the axle also helps hold it.
Yeah, and the leaf spring is almost like a subframe for the engine transmission to mount to.
Yeah, off of the leaf spring mounts, it's got the radiator support and a few other braces. It's crazy.
It's crazy that they designed that whole system for that car, and then it just disappeared.
So crazy.
They're just no.
And only made a few thousand.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. I mean, they were doing a lot of that weird stuff back then, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know what other auto unions they may have used that whole front end in, that whole front leaf spring transverse radiator behind the motor, front wheel drive freewheeling transmission type thing.
Maybe those were in the vans.
Could have been.
Or the panel trucks that they had.
It could have been. Yeah, maybe those were front wheel drive to keep a low flat floor in the back or something like that. But I don't know what the plan is. Right now I'm thinking hopefully I can get a 3-cylinder 2-stroke motor. I mean, maybe this thing back running. It's hard not knowing. Auto Union promoted that engine ran on 7 moving parts.
It's so crazy.
I've got a
the
pamphlet
that you have is
only
unreal.
7 moving parts. 7 moving parts in the whole engine. So insane. So I'd love to. So I've never done an engine build, right? So even though I've had the YouTube channel, I've never done an engine build. Why not start with one of the hardest to find parts for engines?
Why not?
But it's only got
As
7
you do.
moving parts. So I can be like, well, that moves,
Yeah.
and that moves. There's only 4 other moving parts in this whole motor.
Yeah, I mean, there's no cam, there's no valves, there's nothing
Crazy.
like that.
Yeah.
Pistons.
I'm excited to
crank.
I'm excited to, I mean, that'd be a roller bearing motor?
I don't even
I
know.
don't know.
I
I'm excited to take it apart. I've got a block and a head. He gave me some other parts too.
Yeah.
I've got a block ahead. I've got one of the shafts that drives the fan. Like, so there's a shaft with a pulley on the end. The pulley's at the front of the motor. The belt turns, and the shaft goes across. The shaft has like a housing, and the coils mount to that.
Yeah.
And at the back of it is a fan that cools the radiator.
Because
Which
the radiator's at the back.
it's like a French car.
Yeah.
It's like the car or whatever.
And the rotor for the ignition runs off the bottom of the crank pulley.
The points. Yeah, the
points.
points are run off the crank.
Yep.
What a bizarre motor. It'd be so cool to keep that in the car.
So cool. I need a Trabant now.
You have to get a 601. People, go to Corey's Instagram page and tell him to buy a Trabant 601.
Please.
Limitless_Corey.
Help me.
He's been trying to get... Yeah. He's been trying to get a Trabant for years. And he was with me in England when I found the Lada, the Russian, to pre-export, Russian-built 2101.
Yeah.
So I buy that car, bring it back. And you and I are both just grinding. I mean, I'm self-employed. I'm not swimming in any sort of cash flow.
Right,
like,
right.
We're there doing it.
Yep.
Just trying to stay above the water. But I thought, spending almost all my money on this Lada is a great idea. Ship it over to America.
Day 3 of a month-long trip as well.
Driving full across Europe.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that sounds like a great idea. Ship it overseas, bag it, E76 PBS Motorsport wheels. That car came together just the way I wanted it to. Sell it, then acquired the 700, another early, this is a Western German car, fintail little car.
Yeah.
Get that thing done. Still have it though. And I'm like, hey, you got to buy a Trabant now because the 700 is like the BMW version of the Trabant.
Yeah. Trabant has fins too.
Little fins.
Fintail.
2-stroke car though.
2-stroke.
Is that a 3-cylinder or
Yeah.
2?
Now I'm drawing a blank.
That was a
I think
2.
it's 3.
It could be.
I think it's 3.
Yeah. Let me look it up right now.
Yeah.
Anyone listening will be like, I kind of want to know too.
Yeah, some people are screaming at there.
And if you're driving, you shouldn't be looking this up. So let's see here. Trabant 601. And they made other models.
Yeah.
But the Trabant 601, also known as the Trabi, they're such cool cars.
I actually like the shape of the 600, the earlier ones, a lot more. They have more rounded features.
Dude, they made 2.8 million 601s.
That's insane.
What?
Duraplast.
And they're plastic
bodies.
They're the Saturn before Saturn.
I know.
Much
It's like
cooler.
fiberglass, but they use plastic instead.
Wow, they made them from 1964 to 1990.
Yeah.
Holy
and didn't
cow.
change a dang thing except for in the 80s, they took the Polo 1 liter and put it in.
Well, I mean, and like they said about the Ladas, like why change it if it works? That's why the Ladas all the way to like 2010 look the same.
Yeah.
It was powered by a 594cc 2-stroke L2, so it was a 2-cylinder.
Oh, it was a 2, yeah. Okay.
Yep, 2-cylinder.
2-cylinder.
And it says here, related, the Wartburg 353. What? Oh, that was the Wartburg. That had like Zaz look to it.
Yeah. That's what made me think Russian. Because the Zaporofets.
You might be right.
The Zaporofets.
It says German, East German,
East
but I mean, that
German.
was Russian.
I was going to say.
That was Russian pre-89. For the most part. Soviet controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the Wartburg, the title of this episode is going to be like Weird Eastern European Cars.
Rabbit holes.
So the Wartburg was built from 66 to 88 was a company, the Wartburg. And it was assembled in, Eisenach, East Germany. So that was Russian controlled. But that had a 993cc 2-stroke 3-cylinder with a 4-speed manual in it. So that's probably why I bet, man, I had to look more into those motors because I bet they're pretty similar, if not the same as the 3-cylinder in the Auto Union.
What year were those made? 66?
66 to 88.
To 88? So
It's later than my Auto Union.
yeah, so maybe the Auto Union.
Oh, this is the Wartburg 353 though. This isn't Wartburg as a company.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious about the Trabant. But it looks like the Trabant was 2-cylinder.
Yeah, 2.
Let me see here. Variants,
25
technical data.
horsepower.
Man, dude, the the variants, like the deluxe universals they call them, those wagons. I told you I saw a guy. I was at the Dunkin' Donuts in Meredith, New Hampshire, my hometown, and a guy pulls in with an enclosed trailer. I just happened to be inside. I don't remember what I was driving. Definitely wasn't the 700.
No, but one of the cars. Corvair maybe?
Corvair maybe. He came walking in wearing a Trabant shirt, and I was like, what? Like just the Trabant logo?
Yeah.
And I recognized the Trabant logo. I'm like, dude, that's a Trabant shirt. I was like, I've got a Zhiguli 2101 2 miles up the street. And he was like, what? He was like, he was as mind blown as I was. And I said, tell me, I think when he walked in, the first thing I said to him was, tell me there's a Trabant in that trailer. And he's like, what? I was like, you're wearing a Trabant shirt. And that's when it blew his mind. Well, turns out he had a bread van, or not really, no, it's like a wagon, a 2-door wagon.
Yep.
You know, one of those.
Yeah.
In his trailer.
Crazy.
You need one of those. But the 600s are pretty cool. So those are a 2-stroke, two-cylinder. The Wartburgs are 3-cylinder. So definitely got to look in there. Here's the Trabant 600 predecessor. Yeah, those look way better.
Yeah.
Those are way cooler.
Yeah.
That was also P60 series 595cc.
That's right. P60 was, yeah.
But it doesn't say how many cylinders. It's got to be 2 if the 601 was a 2-cylinder.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16.9 kW. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, and they only built 106,000 of the 600s.
Oh, shoot.
Which is like a lot compared to the Auto Union, but not a lot compared to the 601, which was built over a 20-year.
Which you don't see a lot of the 601s, but you see way less of the P60s or 600s.
Exactly. We got to find you a 600.
Yeah.
Anyone listening, let's go. A 600 estate or 600. Yep. Yeah, we got to find Corey a 600.
Red Mercedes for trade.
I'm so sick and tired of being the only one body dropping weird Eastern European cars.
Yeah.
If I still had the Lada, it'd be like a wild looking lineup.
Yeah.
I jokingly said when you showed up and you saw the Auto Union, I said, "No, don't make me buy a Trabant." Because I will. I'll buy a Trabant and give it to you. Just drive this thing so we can cruise around and be cool, weird car guys together.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, I mean, we know some friends in Germany that we've actually met in person with Slam Trabants, and they look so good, Slam.
Oh, yeah.
That one kid in Dresden with the bodied one?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and every once in a while, someone will send me an ad for one in the States, but I want to do what you did. I want to go over there and find one over there and
get it to the port.
Get it to the port and have it imported, yeah.
We can do it. We did it on accident with the Lada.
Seriously, we were joking about it one night.
Holy cow.
And then you're like, oh yeah, I bought one.
Next day, I was friends and family. I was PayPaling a Russian man, friends and family, $3,000 for this Lada.
In exchange for a plastic Lithuanian registration.
And yeah, he's like, it's the registration. I keep keys in car. You send transport. And so we sent Dean's buddy Simon.
Yeah.
We headed for the Eurotunnel. We were in queue at the Eurotunnel waiting to get on the train that had to go into France on our way to Germany and then ultimately on the Wörthersee in Austria.
Yeah.
And I'm sweating bullets.
You were biting your nails.
The day prior, I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't just pay the extra, like what, $60 or $100 for like the buyer's like protection or whatever. And I didn't. I just PayPal. Whatever. I figured I was living life by the seat of my pants. So I paid this Russian man, I paid him, and he kept the car and the keys. He gave me this tiny little laminated registration form that had Lithuanian writing all over it. And then we sent Simon up the next day, and we're sitting in queue at the Eurotunnel, and Simon texts Dean. He goes, oh, Simon just texted me. And I'm like, where is he? Like, what's going on? And all he texted him was a photo of the Lada on the back of his ramp truck. And I was like, we're officially on vacation.
No more buying cars either.
Let's go to Austria for Wörthersee. So, yeah, we got to get you a Trabant.
Yep.
And, we need to live in close proximity again.
Yeah,
so we can cruise those cars around. Whether or not you come to Chattanooga or I go back to New Hampshire. One of the two has to happen.
Because I am not driving the Trabant down here.
Dude, can you imagine?
Take me 6 days.
Oh my gosh. You ought to get a Trabant, and I'll take the Auto Union, or probably the 700 because there'll be parts available at part stores since it's a Beetle. And we got to do some wild road trip in those things.
Let's go.
Like, why not?
Yep.
2 Eastern Bloc cars. Well, I mean, BMW kind of like was on that line.
It'd be cool to have both of those cars in Helen, which is kind of like a German town.
I was thinking it'd be cool to do those cars on like Route 66, but I mean, Helen's cool
that
too.
Like, just drive, it's just 2 hours away.
All the way to Santa Monica, like the pier. You're like, all right, let's turn around and go back.
Yep.
Yeah, those cars are so cool. And I mean, just over the, like, I can't wait to sell the W108 to like start working on the auto union, get a lift put in the shop. And
man.
Shout outs to Benpack. Like, please, Benpack, let's, please, what do I need to do?
Don't ask for sponsorships, but
Benpack.
hello.
The Grand Prix, 10 foot, the 10 foot lift. I only have 11 feet to my trusses.
Right.
Benpack makes that Grand Prix compact lift. John Hall from Bag Riders has one. He sent me all the photos. What do I got to do, Benpack? Who? All right, Jimmy, Tommy, all the YouTube boys that I know that all have Benpacks. What do we got to do? I mean, I'll shout them out on everything. Instagram, YouTube. Like, they make great lifts.
You don't want it for free. You just want it.
I want it. Maybe a good deal would be nice.
A good deal would be great.
Good deal. I mean,
free shout out already.
That'd be amazing. But I know the pad depth downstairs in the floor, over 4 inch. We're good. So that's the next step. Once the Mercedes goes, this will be archived for hopefully forever. But the 108 is basically for sale. I got to tidy up a few things. I didn't have the time to in time for Helen. I got a few offers on it. Might take one of them. It's a good offer.
Yep.
It's a good offer. I got an offer without the Schmitz. And I know I can get $2,500 for the Schmitz or keep them around for a future 50112 project or put them on your 190.
That's it.
Because we test fit them on the 190 and they look spectacular.
Yeah.
They look amazing.
It would change the look for sure. It'd be
look amazing,
lip defender instead of tucking.
That's exactly what I did with my 190. I started tucking, laying flat, and then I spaced them out and added a little bit of camber and ran fender to lip, front and rear, and I liked it a lot. Had that E36 rake look to it. Kind of looked like a race car.
Yeah,
like a race car.
Yeah, DTM look.
Yeah. But yeah, so excited, man. Oh my gosh. That Mercedes is so cool. Like,
it's so clean.
It's one of those manual shift automatics. You got to shift the shifter and it stays in gear as long as you're on the throttle, and you lift and then stomp on the throttle again to get it to shift, but only in 2 gears each selector.
Yep.
So you've got 4, 3, 2. This would be kind of cool tech talk for anyone listening.
Interactive automatic.
Yeah. So the 68, I should note too, and I didn't mention this when I was talking about the car, I rolled 35,000 miles on that car on the way to Helen. It's a baby.
35 original miles.
And I drove it like a bat out of hell. I drove it so hard. And
I could barely keep up in my 190.
You were chasing us down the 190. Once we got into the Smokies, into the windy mountains, Sutton ruined me. Or opened my eyes,
I was going to say, or prepared you for it.
Sutton opened my eyes. So I had my first one was the 69 108. No headrest car. 3-speed automatic, not the interactive automatic. Just a 3-speed automatic.
Drive.
That was a 69 with Zeniths, twin Zenith carbs. Then I had my 1960 Fintail, which was the Hydrac car with twin Solexes, 4-speed on the column, Hydrac car. Then I had the white 60 at the same time that I basically used as a parts car, but that was a 48,000 mile California car that we put the drivetrain in the other Fintail.
Yep.
Then I had the 72 4.5 V8 North American market long door car and factory air suspension, and that was an automatic, and I babied all of them. Right, they're 1960s Mercedes.
Yeah, you
look under the hood at those Solexes and like the throttle linkage set, there's like a 30-point linkage set up, and the carbs have to be synced, and they are synced, so you're like,
don't touch them.
Just baby it. Don't want to break anything. It's a 1960s Mercedes. I haven't wrenched on these cars my whole life. I look at them and I'm like, I don't want to have to fix any of that stuff. It's running well now. Let's just keep some oil in it. We'll keep cooling in it. We'll just drive it nice and easy. Sunday drive type stuff.
Yep.
Get on the highway, maybe 50, 55.
It's a big boat car anyway, so you just want to putt around low. And
no tachometer. So you're like, that sounds like that doesn't want to go anymore. I'll just keep it right there, nice and easy, 48 miles an hour. So then I meet Sutton. And the first time I met Sutton was when you met him as well. We were out in California on the Governor's Club Tour Across America trip when we drove my right-hand drive V23 all the way out there, zigzagging all over America. And we did our final pop-up meet on the E23 trip before flying to Seattle from LA, getting the Century, and driving the Century cross-country the other way back to New Hampshire. But we did the pop-up meet at the Motoring Club in Marina del Rey, basically LA. And Sutton, who we'd been friends with on the internet, or at least I had been, I think you had met him for the first time all together there. Yep. He drove his 6.3 V8, like the heavy hitter W108
Big boy
or 109, down from Sacramento, about 6 hours, and hammered 80 to 100 miles an hour. And I was like, man, you drove this all the way from Sacramento? He's like, well, no, it's a car. It's meant to be driven. I'm like, you're right, I guess.
Yeah.
And then hammered all the way home. And So then the second time I saw him might have been, I don't remember if I went out there first, but then we went out there on the California trip.
Well, we were out there. There were one of the nights we were cruising together with him. I don't know if we were going to get food after the meet or something.
We were cruising down to Huntington Beach.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And hammering around.
We were in the 23, and he was in his Mercedes, both hammering on the highway. We were both doing like 100 miles per hour.
Dude.
In these old German vehicles.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Autobahn cars.
Dude, I've got goosebumps. I've got goosebumps. That night was like a highlight of my life. Like it, dude.
Time cop playing.
Dude, we left the meet late because we stayed at the motoring club pretty late,
as we always did.
And we just hit the road like out of the downtown LA or Marina Del Rey area. We drove through the city, around the city on one of the ring roads, and we're headed to Huntington Beach where we were staying the night at one of Sutton's friends' houses. And so you and I were in the E23. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, this is 81 Mark 1 pre-facelift, shark nose, cypress green, right-hand drive, factory manual with a full BBS body kit. No fog light front splitter, on air, real low to the ground on 18-inch Ronal AC Schnitzer Type 2s. Titanium hardware, the 5-spoke, like pretty mean-looking car. BBS wing, BBS, the whole thing, the side skirts, the whole lot.
Yep.
Real low to the ground. Euro model car. No cats, no air pumps,
5-speed manual.
Thoroughbred BMW. And Sutton's in his 6.3 big V8. That's like a 69 or 70 car. And here we are at like 1 a.m, right? I've got goosebumps. 1 a.m, no traffic on the highway around LA, right?
Nope.
And we are hammering like 100 miles an hour around. I mean, you were Time Cop playing.
Yes.
We're blasting 1980s retro synthwave music.
That's all you could play while doing this.
Dude, with the skyscrapers of LA illuminated at night, circling, like slowly twisting as we're hammering around these ring roads around LA. And I'm in one lane, and 2 lanes over is Sutton in the 6'3", 108. And we're just got our foots in it.
It's a movie.
Our feet
It was
in
a movie. Movie scene.
Insane. I mean, I don't even know how to describe how I felt in that moment. I mean, I'm watching the skyline kind of slowly going by, listening to this synthwave music, and I'm looking over, and Sutton's slowly passing me at like 108 miles an hour, and everything's smooth as glass. Like we're just in that zone, and it really opened my eyes to like vintage German cars and how you can drive them, how they were designed to be driven.
Yes.
And so then it's that highlight of my life. Oh, not the highlight, but one of the highlights. Incredible night.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad you were a part of that. I mean, that was
Me too.
Man, it was so good. The car wanted to be there.
It did.
Not 70, not 80. It felt so much smoother and burned cleaner. It had better gas mileage at 100 miles an hour.
Yep. Like I said, Autobahn.
Exactly.
That's where it was meant to drive.
Yep. And so after that, I think it was when you and I went up in the Cabrio trip and spent a weekend up there, and we bummed around in some of those cars up there too. And then when I went out with Kayla, we went out there to see about the E24 project and drove around in them there. And Sutton's always got his foot in those cars, just revved right out. And I remember when I bought this 108, when I was talking to him on the phone, and I was like, you do like 80 miles an hour in these things. He's like, yeah, man, even in the 6-cylinder cars. I'm like, man, I just feel like 60 miles an hour is all my old ones wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so when he was driving the car, after they did some maintenance, he was driving it. And I think he was taking it back to the shop for the transport truck. And he sent me a video of it, pegged at 80. And he was just driving through the farm country of Northern California. And he's like, proof.
Yeah.
80 miles an hour. I take delivery of the car. I drive it. I get up to 60. Sounds like it's revved right out. And I'm like, is there another gear? I counted 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm thinking... I called Sutton. I was like, hey, man, when you were doing 80 miles an hour in this car, what did it sound like? Because I'm thinking this thing's about ready to, all the nuts and bolts are about to come apart.
Floating valves and everything else.
I'm like, what did it sound like? And he's like, like it was burning clean. And I'm like, what? So from that moment forward, I've been driving that car like I was Richard Petty, my foot in it. So when we went to Helen and we got into the Smoky Mountains, I thought, whatever, here we go. I had that thing down in 3, so all it would shift between was 2 and 3.
Yep.
And had my foot just to the floor in that thing. and windy roads. I got to hold that big steering wheel, and Kayla's laughing. She's grinning ear to ear.
Yeah.
And we're looking out over that long bonnet at that huge Mercedes emblem. And I'm just...
That's it.
And it's not carbureted. It's fuel injected, so it's taken every little bit of it.
Yep.
And man, oh man, did that car, we had a couple climbs in some 100-degree heat. Had to stop and let her cool down a little bit.
Sure. With any car, yeah.
It's just got a puller mechanical fan on it,
Yep.
with the original radiator. But man, oh man, that made me want to keep that car so badly. I mean, I just hammered that car to death.
And it loved every second of it.
It just took it. Yeah, Sutton did this. He did the carrier bearing in the drive shaft, the flex disc. Did some other cooling lines, some hard lines and stuff. Got the thing basically sorted. Man, oh man. And it sounds good. It's got
sounds so good.
It's got
especially being behind it. Oh
man. It's got a throaty exhaust on it. Oh man, I'm talking myself into keeping this thing. That car is my lift.
Somebody come buy it so we can get on to other things.
Man, someone give me $20,000 for it. We're done. It's over. I mean, that's what the first offer is with keeping the wheels, basically.
Yep.
So we'll see. I know Bring a Trailer would bring possibly 30 to 40. I know we were talking about that in Helen with some friends who've been selling cars on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah, some are listed up there. Some other 108s.
I had a look. It's 2 months. I'm like, man, if I could get 24 right now, maybe I'm leaving 10 or more on the table. Bird in hands, worth two in the bush,
Yeah, whatever that saying is.
Whatever. It sounds right. Sounds like if I sell it now for X, I can get the lift and everything else put in it for Y and be done. So, but Sutton bought another 108. He's like, hey, come bag this one, do one more. So maybe if there's a few people in line at a certain ballpark range, just do another one.
Yep.
But, so talking about Helen, car drove to Helen amazingly. You drove your 190 down from New Hampshire.
From New Hampshire to Chattanooga. A week early. To
hang here for a few days before we went to Helen.
Yeah.
And you did it alone.
Yep. I left at 2 a.m. Got here about dinner time the next day. Pretty much 6 or 7, I think.
Hammered it. Yep.
Just hammered it. Yeah.
Straight.
Record time. Straight. Just stopped for gas and some snacks. I didn't even eat meals. I was just like, nope, we're going.
And the car did it. No problems.
Flawlessly.
And we said that all weekend long.
Yeah.
No problems.
I literally made a post about it on Instagram. The car performed flawlessly all the way down here, all the way to Helen, ripping around Helen through the mountains. Didn't overheat.
In hot heat.
In hot heat.
Yep.
Yep. In traffic in Helen, didn't overheat. It got hot a few times. The fan kicked on. I was like, all right, we'll give it a break.
Yep. Spoke a little too soon.
Yeah, I jumped the gun.
Well, Helen, before we get into the trip home.
Didn't knock on enough wood.
Yeah. Helen was amazing. Shout outs to Paul Barney.
Absolutely.
The amount of work he does to allow, for the town to allow that show there is monumental, almost insurmountable. The amount of trips he has to make up there throughout the year to just keep the townspeople happy enough to let them do that.
Accepting.
The show went amazing. It was back in the show field where SoWo used to be held, which was amazing. That's an awesome venue right across the river, right in downtown. And it went well. The weather was good. We got to hang out with guys like Mark, tons of gas. He brought 7 on a 2-car stacker, 7 of the most incredible Volkswagens and Audis at the show.
We could talk about his collection for literally 10 podcasts.
We might be able to talk about that collection because we might be out there soon.
Yep.
That's a podcast episode about what he wants us to do. I'm not even going to say what he wants us to do.
Yeah. Just in case it doesn't happen. But.
Or in case it does and we can hype it up.
Yeah.
Because he wants us to build suspension for a certain car that he's got that is a super rare and heavily valuable car.
Heavy hitter.
It's a heavy hitter car. Hung out with him. That's always a good time. He brought his Audi Coupe Quattro, short wheelbase car.
Yep.
The real expensive ones.
Yep. And 3 Callaway cars. I was out of the 11 Callaway cars he owns.
You said, Mark, how many Callaway cars do you own? And his response was, he looks up.
Yeah.
And thinking. And he goes, verbatim, 10 or 11?
Yeah.
What?
So I get, later on, not to interrupt where you were going, but I was talking to him later in the weekend. And he came up to me and he was talking to me about the 190. And he was like, oh, I really like the way this looks. I'm like, really? What? You like this? He's like, yeah, I got one too. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you have an Evo or something. And he's like, well, yeah, I got a Cosworth, but I got another 190 that I just had a full restoration done on. I'm getting it back in like 3 or 4 weeks. I'd actually love for you to see it. It's the one of one Callaway Mercedes 190E. My jaw hit the floor.
Oh.
I had to stop him, and I was like, hold on, I need to process this.
Yeah.
One of one Callaway Turbo Mercedes 190E.
That Callaway built.
That Callaway coach built.
That car.
Like went to Mercedes and said, hey, I want a 190E.
Yep.
Just one. Just one of them.
We want to play with one.
Yeah. Like he did.
Insane.
Reese Callaway.
Insane. Yep. Wow. Yeah, and wasn't he saying it? Yeah,
he's like, yeah, Reese texted me.
He's like, look, Reese texted me yesterday or whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh. When you own 11 cars of what this guy and his team have like built, you kind of get put on his radar probably.
Yeah, you have to.
Because you hit him up and you're like, hey, like, so this one car that you built, like the 190E, like, what'd you do here? But, if you're like restoring it, it's like, well, what'd you... And he probably helped out. Like, yeah, we still got some parts from that or whatever. Or this is what we did.
Or like you could use this in case this doesn't work or what, you know what I mean?
Tons of gas on Instagram.
Tons of gas.
It's nuts. He's got some wild stuff. The flying mirror Testarossa. Wow. The like 7,000 mile Mark II that he brought.
Yep.
The Mark II trophy that he brought. Oh man. Some wild stuff. Yeah, the Scirocco
Callaway.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yep.
Man, yeah. So regardless, if we work on this car that he wants us to work on,
which we haven't mentioned,
I won't mention it.
No,
not yet. But I'm like nervous about it. I've told you, and we've made some phone calls to some people about parts, and I'm like, it's all bolt-in, right? Because I don't want to be cutting. I don't even want to drill any holes in this car because I don't want to be like held responsible for anything. Like,
I did that.
I don't want to put a jack under this car.
I know.
Like it's a Harbor Freight jack. Like, is that okay? Like, I don't know. So. Regardless of that happening or not, and I don't know if you'll be able to make it down, but like Kayla and I are going to go out there in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm selling my house and it might go through like quickly. So you guys should come out as soon as you can. I'll show you the collection and you should like do this and this on that car. I'm like, oh, okay, baby.
Yep.
We apparently have 3 to 4 weeks on parts for that car. So we have like a month.
Which is all within the same timeline of when
I'll talk to him.
You were talking about going out there.
Yeah.
His Callaway 190 will be done, so I want to go out there.
And then we might have some fun on a car.
Yeah.
Which would be incredible content.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's
not even just for like the YouTube content of building it, but once it's done.
Yeah. Insane.
Like
break the internet
car.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate to say that and be like.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's not. I mean, I don't want to undervalue what we do, but it's nothing that like someone else couldn't do either.
Right.
Because like I just said, it's bolt-in stuff.
Yes.
With the exception of like some finagling here and there, it's something that someone else could do too. But people who own these cars don't do this.
No,
they don't do this.
No.
There's been one other one that we know of. And I shouldn't give too much more away.
No.
But there's one more that we know of that's been done like this. And like, if this one's done like that
one was highly modified as well.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe Mark will. Well, this one's like one of two. I hate saying that. That makes me scared. One of two in this configuration.
Yes, with this package.
Yeah, holy cow. But so that'll be amazing. Content coming on that coverage or whatever. Helen was amazing. Shout outs to Paul. Everybody else we saw there. A bunch of old heads came through. And I don't mean age-wise. I just mean people that we hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
Like
cars we haven't seen in years.
Our buddies Sean and Kayla Landegren brought out the Mark III Coupe. That was like PW car.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see a lot of those cars out again. My buddy Aaron Shelty came down from Minnesota with his Mark I. He took Best in Show at Alpine Volks Fair.
Yeah.
SEMA car. Incredible. I mean, full-blown.
Amazing.
Euro build car. I mean, every nut and bolt, polished, chrome this, chrome that. Like every single corner of this car has been painted, polished, or custom stitched.
Yes.
Like every single corner. Insane car. Wheels custom built, all of it. And so that was a treat to see that car. Just an all-around treat. And then we split and went our separate ways. We headed 3 hours back to Chattanooga in the 68. In the heaviest rain I've ever driven in a 68 Mercedes, no water coming in.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the seals for a California car. That's more proof that it sat inside.
Yeah.
That the sun didn't cook it all to death. I mean, the fact that there's no cracks in the dash or the tops of the back seats or the parcel shelf are evidence of that too. But
yeah, the seams aren't splitting and that.
But Sunday night, after we headed home, you got in touch and were like, hey, like, I think I called you. I called you from a post you made or something.
Yeah.
Your girlfriend messaged me.
That's right.
And said, hey, Corey's in trouble.
That's right. Because I hadn't reached out to anyone. I was trying to figure it out.
That's what it was.
I was trying to friggin'...
That's what it was. So I called you and I'm like, hey, man, how's it going? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. So go ahead and... yeah, so you take the reins on what happened, because then we could talk about like the rescue mission.
Yes. So you call me, which was actually my second breakdown of the evening. So I left at like 4 p.m. or something.
We split about that time.
Yeah, that time. I was just gonna drive through the night to get home the next day or whatever. So I make it a couple hours out of Helen, and at one point I noticed I was just windows were down, music was way up, and I was just zoned in. I was like, I'm making it home, and I noticed the wheel started to dart back and forth, and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And my friggin' front end hit the ground on one side. So needless to say, I rubbed through an airline underneath the car to the front bag. And
pouring
rain in the mountains. And I don't remember where I was at this point. I think I was in North Carolina.
Yeah, that split between North Carolina and Tennessee.
Yeah, before making it to the Virginia line.
Yep.
And in the mountains, gorgeous, but no service. No nothing. So obviously, as soon as my front end hit the ground, I pull off the highway. There's barely anyone on the highway either. Like, no one's going by. And I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. Pouring rain.
Yep.
So I get under the car what I can and pretty much find where the air leak is and try to see if it's fixable. And it's really not, because I don't have airlift, or I don't have management with parts available.
What do you have?
I have the South American caster air ride system, which has let me down several times. So, needless to say,
and it's metric line.
It's metric line.
It's metric line.
That's the hardest part.
Metric PTC fittings.
Yes.
So you've got, luckily, extra metric line in your car.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Extra metric line in the car. So
I love it.
So I do what I have to do.
Yeah.
I take the front wheel off. I run an airline to the bag, because I can get to the bag. It's not a problem.
Yep.
I run a new line. I start it at the bag. I run it forwards through the bumper, up through the engine bay of the car, out the hood, open the window to the front passenger door. I open the window a little bit, run the airline in that window, through the interior of the car, through the parcel shelf in the back window, into my manifold.
Into the trunk.
There's a bunch of extra line because I didn't have a line cutter for some reason.
Oh, boy.
And a bunch of extra line spooled up. Ran it to my manifold, connected it, aired the car up, good to go.
Yep.
I got an airline running outside of my car. Looks like a Borg from friggin' Star Trek.
Yeah, but it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
I aired the car up. It didn't leak. I friggin' got in the car. Actually, I changed my clothes on the side of the highway because I was soaked to the bone.
Yep.
Yeah, got in the car. Did the same thing, put the windows down, cranked the music. I said, hell yeah, I made it. I'm getting home. Start hammering again. Maybe 2 hours. The sun goes down. It gets real dark. It's still friggin' downpouring. And
you're in Virginia at this point.
I'm in Virginia at this point. It's middle of the night. It's
I-81.
Yep, I-81, yep. And again, I'm cruising. I'm like friggin' flooring it, just cruising. And I go to overtake a truck. And halfway through overtaking the truck, my pedal just goes limp and the car starts dying. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. So like halfway in passing this truck, I lose all my power. He passes me and I pull over and get on the side of the highway, and there's barely any breakdown lane. And
yeah, because you have a guardrail on you, right?
Yeah, guardrail. I put the passenger mirror on the friggin' guardrail.
Yeah.
This truck's blowing by me and stuff. And I pretty much grab my phone flashlight and get under the car, and I see that it is dumping fuel underneath the car from the gas tank fuel pump area. And I mean, it's right up against the side of the highway. I didn't even feel comfortable getting the jack out and putting it on that side and trying to crawl under there.
Yeah, at night
At
with no
night
street lights.
with no lights anywhere,
Yep.
pouring rain. So I have AAA. I called AAA. They're like, yeah, we'll get somebody out there in an hour. An hour goes by. I think I had called you at this point.
I called you.
Yeah, you called me.
And when I called you,
I
at
filled
that
you
point,
in.
you were waiting on AAA.
Yeah, I was waiting on AAA.
To just get you off the highway because there's
Yeah,
nowhere.
literally, I could see an exit.
You were in Marion.
Marion.
You were in Marion, Virginia, which isn't quite to Roanoke. And you're kind of in between Bristol, Tennessee and Roanoke.
Exactly.
So you're kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Still in the middle of nowhere. I had service at this point, which I'm so thankful I had service at this point.
Yep.
Because if I couldn't get that airline fixed, I would have been friggin' screwed.
Yeah, you'd be sleeping in the car and then figuring out where you're
And
going. in the
hoping a
morning.
Stady stop by or
Yep.
something. But yeah, so an hour goes by. I call AAA again. They're like, oh yeah, we're still trying to find someone. I was like, oh, that's not what you told me a minute ago. So another little amount of time goes by. A Stady pulls up and he's like, are you all set? What's going on? I'm like, yeah, I blew a fuel line or something. There's fuel all over the ground, whatever. And he's like, all right, well, I need you off the highway. And I was like, yeah, I need to be off the highway too, man. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Get sideswiped by a big rig.
Yeah.
So so I was like, can you call someone? He was like, well, if you got AAA, we'll wait on that. And, I'll come back and check on you in a little bit. Oh, and I'll light you some flares. And he like goes out back and like starts lighting flares. And I'm like, oh, there's fuel all over the ground. I was like, hey, back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
you got
light
a
my
gas
car.
tank just leaking fuel. Like you're
Light my car on fire
Nice.
as I burn to death in it.
Yeah.
So whatever. He lights his flares and he friggin' takes off. And probably another hour goes by. It's like 2 a.m. at this point. And I keep calling AAA and they're like, oh yeah, we're just trying to find someone. It's really hard. So the same Stady comes back, pulls up behind me and he goes, I need you off the highway. Like what's AAA saying? And I was like, they're still trying to find someone. So he goes, all right, give me 2 minutes. And he goes, tow truck will be here in 10 minutes. I'm going to get you off the highway. I'm like, perfect. Thank you. I'll pay for it. Whatever. AAA will reimburse me within, 10 or whatever days.
Yeah.
So the tow truck picks me up and I say the Red Roof Inn. It's literally 2 miles. We get off the highway and it's like right there, right off the highway. He dumps me in the parking lot and it's like 3 a.m. at this point. I'm again soaked to the bone. So I just go to bed and wake up in the morning and I have my stock jack, which is just the one that sticks in and you kind of crank it up and it's kind of wobbly. And I had planks of wood that I put under as like a jack stand, but
basically a Widowmaker.
Basically a Widowmaker.
Yeah.
And no real jack stands. So I crawled under what I could, turned the key back on, fuel everywhere. I can't tell where it's coming from. There's like a cover over everything next to the fuel tank. So I'm kind of panicking. I'm like, I blew my fuel tank out or like the feed line from the tank or like, I have no idea. But I can't really get to it comfortably. So
that's when you texted me.
That's when I texted you.
Because I'd woken up and seen that text already.
Yep.
Yeah.
At first I had called all the U-Hauls in the area. One had a truck, one had a trailer. I was gonna like go to one and get an Uber to one, get the truck and then get the trailer. And then it crossed my mind like none of these U-Haul trailers have winches on them. The car doesn't run at all.
Right.
There's no fuel getting to the engine of this car.
Yeah.
So pushing a car onto the trailer myself would be almost impossible.
I wonder if, obviously, like for future reference, I wonder if like using like carb cleaner, because I know starting fluid is like real hard on engines.
Yeah.
I wonder if using that with like a long tube going to like your intake, if you had all these
I'm
things,
sure.
and just keep spraying it,
Just
like
even just running off the starter, I thought about, but it's not a manual.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just crank it up onto there.
Kick the table again.
There's a few things you could have done, but yeah, but that's all. But that's all like insanely
like last resort
Exactly.
type things, and I'm already like in the middle of nowhere, like.
U-Haul was going to be like $1,000 too.
That's the other thing. U-Haul, even back to you, I priced it out to you, and it was even going to be $1,000.
Because at this point, you're about 5 hours from me.
Yep.
Or so.
And I'm like, I'm not. I wouldn't say I was like scared to, like to be in the middle of nowhere with a broken car. No, I wasn't scared. I was fine, but I had to figure it out.
You can't stay there.
I was very anxious about figuring it out and how to get home. And then, the thought in the back of my mind's like, I got to be at work in a couple of days, and just, I called you and I was like, man, please help me.
Yeah. The text,
literally.
Yeah. The text was like, called U-Haul. I don't think I can fix it here.
Yeah.
I don't have like the right jack or whatever. Just, I don't think fixing it here with what I've got or what's available to me is doable. And U-Haul is going to be like $900 or $1,000. And then I don't know how I'll get the car on alone.
Yep.
And, is there any way you can come out and get me? So this is Monday, the day after the weekend.
Yep.
And Kayla, my girlfriend, has Monday and Tuesdays off. And, working for myself, I can move my schedule around. So I was like, well, we can drop what we're doing or what's planned for the day and monsooning all day.
Of course.
And we can like go get Corey. Then I realized, oh shoot, I've had this like ticking sound in the front of my motor on my Ford for like the last couple of weeks, but I put it off because I was so busy trying to get the Mercedes done in time for Helen.
And you were driving the Mercedes to Helen, so you didn't need the truck.
Right. So I thought I'll work on I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. Yes. I'll work on the truck when I get home, which was like this upcoming week.
Yep.
And so now I think I can't take my truck. Like I've got my enclosed trailer, but I could borrow Mason's aluminum trailer,
mm-hmm.
but I can't take my truck. So now I'm trying to think like, oh man, what do we do? And so long story short, we decided on a Home Depot rental because they have F-250s.
Yep.
And they were like $130 a day with unlimited mileage. Now, I think as you and I talked about, you might want them to stay in the state that you rent them in.
Small print, but no one mentioned it to you, so
I didn't read any of the
liability is waived.
So we had to go down to Dalton, Georgia, which was like an hour south, to go get Mason's trailer. And so we thought like, well, actually I got to pee real bad. I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah,
I'm going to pee.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, where were we? We were talking about picking you up.
Yep.
So we got the rental truck. We went down to Dalton. And again, pouring rain. Can't emphasize this enough. It wasn't just raining.
Yeah, not just rain.
It was just like when it rains, it pours type situation.
Literally.
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because while you were trying to sort out the truck, I kept thinking to myself, I'm in the hotel like alone, nothing to do. I'm like, I got to go try to fix it.
That's the other thing. You got the hotel for another night just in case.
Yes.
So you didn't have to check out at 11.
Yeah.
Because at this point it was like 8 a.m. We're trying to figure out how we're doing this.
Yeah.
And so we got down to Dalton, made sure the Home Depot had a truck. And so we went and got the truck. Before we went in to rent the truck, we drove by it and I realized it had a Reese hitch, which I knew from the photos online, but it had a hitch in it with a locking pin with no ball in the hitch. So I'm like, all right, we're going to have to because I brought my hitch with me.
Yeah.
My hitch with my 2 5/16 ball, and we're going to just pull the hitch out and put my hitch in. So at this point, we're ready to hit the road. So I've got like everything I think I'm going to need. I brought a floor jack. Yep. I brought my cordless impact just in case, my cordless flashlights, hand tools, a breaker bar, just stuff that like there should be. All we should have to do is roll this thing on the trailer and push it as hard as we can and come home. So I got my ratchet straps, I got my ratchets, I got everything I'd need. But I just brought other stuff just in case we get all the way up there.
Yeah.
So I see there's no ball in that hitch. I'm like, oh, they better have the key to that locking pin to get the hitch out. So we go inside, we go to rent it. I asked them, I said, hey, there's no ball. Do you have the key for the locking hitch? And they're like, this is the only key we have. And there's like the key to the truck. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, and we have this. And she gave me a 2-inch ball. She goes, so you can put that on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I need a 2 5/16 inch ball. She's like, oh, these are the only things they gave us when the truck came, this key and this ball. And I'm like, well, okay. So then I thought, now I'm thinking, well, I've got my cordless impact, which is like a 1,200 foot-pound impact, but I don't have my 1.5 inch socket for the 1.5 inch nut with the giant lock ring on my trailer hitch ball. And then I don't have the key to unlock the locking pin. So I'm like, oh boy. So it's, again, pouring rain. We go outside, we rent the truck. We rent it anyway because I'm thinking, well, maybe while we're in Home Depot, I looked for an 1.5 inch socket and they had nothing. The largest they had was like 1 inch or 1 1/4. And it was in a set.
Yeah.
Like the largest sole one was like 3/4 inch or something like that. And I'm like, oh man. I'm like, all right, well, maybe we'll go to Harbor Freight. I bet Harbor Freight has it. So we go to Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight doesn't have it. They don't have it. They don't have anything over like 1.25. And I'm like, what? And so now I'm like, oh boy, now what? The only thing they had, so they had 1.5 inch in a 1-inch drive socket set, a full set. I've got a 1/2 inch drive.
Yeah.
I think they may have even had it in 3/4 inch drive, but I can't remember. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And it's like time's ticking away. It's pouring. I'm already soaked to the bone. I'm like, So
you'd called me a couple of times and be like, oh, we hit another roadblock. Like, we're going to have to figure. I'm like, that's, whatever. Just that's fine. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're thinking about coming out here to save me. Just whatever.
They didn't have 1.5 inch wrenches either. And so I bought a metric. Oh, no. I bought an adjustable, a big adjustable, because I didn't have a wrench or an adjustable that size. I bought a big adjustable, and I thought, well, I don't have an empty reese hitch on a truck to use as a vise. I'm going to have to like hold this thing on the ground. And I can't remember how hard. You put them on hard. You don't want that thing coming off.
Yeah.
So I bought like a $20 adjustable, go outside, and I'm like, it pouring rain. I'm using, Kayla's got a sport wagon, and I've got the hatch up as like some sort of canopy, and I'm trying as hard as I can to get leverage on this thing, and I just can't break it free. Can't do it.
No.
So I go back inside, and I buy like an $80 like impact set of metric ones, because I don't have they don't have one in a 1/2 inch drive, nor do they have a 1/2 inch to 1 inch upset adapter or upscale adapter for 1 inch like sockets there. So I buy a 1/2 inch drive metric like axle nut set, and it's got a 38 mil on it. And I'm like, I wouldn't know. I did the conversion. I'm like, that's pretty close. So I go out there, and it's a little loose, but it'll grab. And I'm like, it'll probably work. So by the grace of God, I had my impact gun there, the Cordis Impact. Because if not, I wasn't going to spend another $250 on an impact. So I was able to zip that thing off. I'm like, thank God. And then, so now we go back, get the truck, and zip that thing on, because we were still staying in one car because it was like a monsoon out.
Yeah.
It just would not let up. It's not like the hours that were passing, it just would not stop. Like flooded, the roads were flooded everywhere in Dalton. We had to actually drive her car through a parking lot of a business because there was a low spot. And some big work van was going around in this parking lot too, and you couldn't tell how deep it was. Man. We went around this thing, and some Kia Soul or Hyundai SUV came, and I stopped to let them go by, and it went over the hood of their car, like almost. I shouldn't say that. It wasn't over the hood, but it was like up to the grill, and they like somehow made steam everywhere, but it was like almost through the grill of their car. And we were in a sport wagon. We're like, oh yeah, no, that would have sucked water for sure.
Yeah.
So we go back and get the truck. I impact that ball on. I'm like, we're ready to go. We go to Mason's. We go to get the trailer. Then I realize it's got a flat 4. It doesn't have a 7-way.
Electrical connector.
I'm like, oh, I might have figured this out before we went to Mason's. So we go back to Home Depot where we'd left the truck, put the ball on, realize it's a flat 4. I'm like, oh shoot, I need an adapter. I go inside, I get an adapter. I'm rushing at this point. So I get a flat 4 to 7-way adapter, come back out, realize it's not the right configuration. It's as if you had a 4-way trailer with a 7-way truck.
Yes,
that's the way that goes. You plug the 7-way into the 7-way receiver on the truck. Your flat 4 trailer plugs into it.
Yep.
I need the other one.
That's the other way.
Home Depot does not have that. So I'm like, oh, all right. So then I Google who does have one. AutoZone has one on the other side of Dalton.
Yep.
So now we're in the truck. Now we've got the truck and the trailer. Yes.
Yeah,
you truck and the trailer
without lights.
with no lights.
Yeah.
But I will not touch the highway with it because it's monsooning and you can't even see. It's like dark. You can't see. So yes, we do have the trailer now because I didn't realize it was a 4-way until we got to the trailer. And I'm like, oh, why didn't I notice this before? Because I was focusing on the trailer ball.
And it was monsooning rain.
Exactly,
and
which makes you try to...
the truck.
Yeah, you do more things with haste and you miss a lot of things. So now we've got the trailer, no lights, and we get over to AutoZone to get the right adapter, plug that in, plug the trailer in, no lights. Now, I know we're not going to have trailer brakes. There's a flat 4, lights only.
Right.
So
which is manageable.
No lights. I'm like, no lights. I'm like, oh, we can't do this with no lights. So I unplug it. Again, by the grace of God, the socket kit, like my little toolbox I brought with me, I had my test light in it.
Yep.
Which is obviously cheap enough to buy in AutoZone, but I had one.
But yeah, you
so
had it.
Now I'm testing. I'm not getting anything. I'm grounding the truck. I'm testing everything. I'm testing my constant power while the lights are on and the brake. Nothing. So I go the other way. I plug inside. I'm trying to ground. Nothing. Nothing's working. I'm like, oh, this flat four doesn't even work.
Yeah.
So we go back and we take the truck back.
You said that was a brand new truck too, right?
Brand new truck, had 19,000 miles on it.
Oh my God.
And I was in there with I had a little wire brush, and I'm like trying to like clean contacts and stuff. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not getting anything.
Yeah.
I even probed the line on the backside of the flat four, not getting any signal. Mm-hmm. So now we go back to Mason's to drop the trailer off, go back to Home Depot to give the truck back, zip my ball off that hitch, and go, we can't use it. The flat four doesn't work. So we're thinking they're going to put up a fight. They don't. They're like, okay, like, here's your money back. Here's your refund.
Yep.
We found one up in Fort Oglethorpe, which is almost closer to Chattanooga. So now we drive all the way back up almost to Chattanooga, get that truck. Before we get the truck, I drive around behind it. It's got a ball on it. And I can see from like half a parking lot away, it looks like a 2 5/16 ball.
Yeah.
So I walk up to it. Sure enough, it's got a fixed, it's locked on there.
Yeah.
2 5/16 ball. Now I'd called them earlier on our way up. I'm like, hey, the website shows you guys have a F-250. He's like, yes, we do. I said, does that have like a trailer ball on it? And is it a flat four? And I said, it looked like it had, the last one we had like I asked if it had like a locked in hitch. And he goes, yes, because you're not allowed to tow your own trailer with this. You can only tow like our rental trailers. And I was like, oh boy. I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay. So we go up there. And I noticed it's got a 2 5/16 ball already on it. I'm like, all right, thank God.
Yeah.
But now look closer. It's got a flat four. I'm like, all right, I've already got the adapter, the right one.
Yep.
All right. So I don't have the keys to the truck yet. So I can't put a test light on this flat four yet. So we go inside. They don't say anything about a trailer. We don't say anything. They don't say anything.
Right.
I'm renting a truck.
Yep.
So then we go out and I turn the keys on. I turn the truck on, go back. The flat four tests out. It's good. Put the adapter on.
Yes.
Test the 7-way. It looks good. All right. We're good to go. 2 thumbs up. Get back in the truck. All the way back to Dalton to get Mason's trailer again. We plug the trailer in. Blinkers work. Brake lights work. Parking lights work. Let's go to Virginia.
Yeah.
So now we're headed to Virginia, I think. Did we do anything else? I can't remember. We stopped at Oakwood Cafe because guess what? It was a Monday and it was the Holy Trinity Day. Chicken casserole, broccoli casserole, corn casserole.
Yes.
I told Corey, I said, hey, or I called you and I said, hey, we're stopping at Oakwood.
Yeah.
We deserve
I was
this
like,
now.
of course. Yeah.
Soaked to the bone.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, you earned it. Meanwhile, I'm in the hotel, like just feeling terrible that you're going through all of this friggin' nightmare, and I'm sitting there like, come get me.
So I should say at this point, it's the end of Monday. This escapade.
It's friggin' late Monday now.
This escapade took us all day in the pouring rain, made it take even longer. So now I'm saying, hey, we're leaving in the morning.
Yeah.
We got to have the truck back by 5 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to leave at 3:30 in the morning and just hammer up there. Get up to you by 7 or 8. So we hammer to expedite the end of the story. We hammer up there. We leave at like 3:45 in the morning. We get to you by 8.
The rain lets up.
Thank God. The rain lets up. It's dry.
It's relatively dry by 8 a.m.
We're able to push the car on, which, we're... Again, long story short, you had a Red Roof Inn in Marion, which is like where a bunch of like Appalachian Trail hikers are. So there's a bunch
really
of like
weirdos,
hippie dudes like hanging out there. Not
no
that everyone,
offense. No,
not that everyone that hikes the Appalachian Trails are weirdo.
No.
But this place was filled with weirdos.
Yes.
And we're in the process. Kayla's in the car steering and running the brake because I've got a wheel chuck up on the trailer. Got a little bit of a downhill, but to the ramps, it's all uphill. And then the trailer's downhill again, right?
Yeah.
So Kayla's in there steering, and you and I got to the ramp part, and we are just pushing as hard as we can. The pavement's still kind of slippery, kind of wet, and these two able-bodied like hiker dudes walk by, and they literally go, "You guys got this!
You guys got this!"
With 2 thumbs up.
Yep.
Not hey.
As we're literally sweating it out getting this car on the trailer.
I don't know where we went wrong. like. Seriously, if I saw a couple of guys struggling to push a car on, I'd drop what I was doing. I'd pull my car over and be like, hey, you guys need some help? Looks like you need some help. Yep. You got a rental car, a car trailer, and a car that clearly doesn't run.
Clearly.
Let me help your day out a little bit. So as I'm like, yeah, thanks guys for everything.
Yeah.
Able-bodied
Both
humans.
of our faces are as red as the car trying to push this thing up.
So I think we could have gotten it.
We could have.
Blowing some blood vessels
there
in our eyeballs.
Yep.
But like this one guy comes over and helps us push it on. Like, hey, I watched you long enough.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, man. We get the car on. We get everything sorted. We come back, and I know we're hungry. We're ready to wrap this episode up.
Yeah.
But we get back to the house, and turns out it was a fuel line that blew.
It was a fuel line coming from the pump to the filter. The 190 has all this weird over-engineered, like, 2 pumps, but only one pump works sometimes. So there's a T in between the two, and then they go to the filter, and then there's a pressure regulator. And it's just a bunch of rubber lines and just bullshit.
Which you've replaced.
Which I did replace when I bought the car 2 years ago and about 15 to 20,000 miles ago. So I figured it was good. You know, it's been a while, but that had some miles on it. And I guess when you and I looked at it, one of the T's that was used between the pumps and the filter, the angle was just clearly too much. You know,
the fitting was like kind of angled up, and the rubber line came from the bottom and then made an aggressive bend to go onto it. So it looked like that brass fitting was pushing against the wall of the rubber line.
Exactly, and that's right where it just literally blew out, like almost a 2-inch long split in this rubber line. Which it was fuel injection line too. It wasn't like I used some cheap power steering line or something. It was fuel braided line, and it freaking blew that out.
Exploded it,
and so I got a new line. I actually did a loop instead of just a hard turn.
Right.
And I replaced that airline that I had blown. I ran that underneath the car correctly.
Yep. And now we're going to drive it to dinner and see if it runs okay, because tomorrow morning you're planning on hitting the 22-hour drive home.
That's it.
One more time. Man, I'm so thankful it was something easy. That there wasn't something up with the tank and you have to drop the subframe and then drop the tank. And I don't have a lift in the shop yet. You've got it up on jack stands. You took that cover off where the pumps are and the line was right there split. And you're like, found it.
Yeah.
And you've had it running already.
Yeah.
Nothing leaks.
Nope.
Ran the new airline. Yeah, we're going to drive
very
it.
thankful for that.
Going to drive it around town, see if it's good to go. And in the morning, you're off and running.
That's it.
Man.
So thanks again. I'm going to say it on air.
Hey,
Thank you for coming to get me.
I posted on Instagram that we were headed to get you because obviously it's like fun content. Like, hey, we're driving 10 hours round trip at the drop of a hat to go get Corey. And because like I was capable, it's not like I had a job where it's like, hey, I need to go get my friend. And like, no, you can't leave.
Yeah.
It's like, I am capable of sorting this out and going to get you. Mm-hmm. So like if I was stranded out in the middle of nowhere, which has happened plenty of times, I'm on the road all the time.
Right.
If I was like 5 hours away from you and you had the capability of like doing that, it would be a lifesaver.
I absolutely would too.
And I had people texting me and like responding to the story, being like, "Man, you're such a good friend." I'm like, "Well, isn't this what friends are?" Can't we like? I mean, I didn't. And Kayla was all about going with us. We were 3 deep in a single cab truck on the way back.
Love it.
And I mean, I feel like any friend would do what they could do to like help out. Like, sorry, dude. Sorry, you're at a Red Roof Inn with a bunch of hiker hippies. And like that's it. That's all she wrote.
Yeah, like losing power in the middle of the night because it's friggin' violently thunderstorming, and
it's a Red Roof Inn.
And I'm just like,
man,
I'm an adult man. I'm fine. I don't have to be scared. You know what I mean?
You're that meme of the dog in the burning room. Like, everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
We are that dog.
I'm the kid on the bus. I'm in danger.
Yeah, we are both of those memes more often than not.
Yeah.
Well, let's get some food, man. I know we're all hungry.
Yeah, happy to be back on a podcast. It's been a while.
Yeah, I mean, you were on numerous of them the first go around before I moved.
Season 1.
This is the new studio, so you're in like the new setup. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad we took the time to do this.
Me too.
To get this done, because it would have taken a lot for me to do one solo and get it done. So I'm glad we did that. We're able to talk about the weekend's festivities.
Yeah, another little note. The day after broken down in the hotel, I called my boss, Peter, and I was like, listen, man, this is what's going on. And he was like, that's fine, and if you need to take a couple extra days to get back to John's, fix the car. That way you don't have to fly home and then go back and figure out all that. Just take the week, figure it out. You're not going to put us out. So thankful to them. They gave me the rest of the week pretty much. So I got it sorted. I'm going to drive it home and be good. Yes.
Not jinxing it. Yeah.
Not jinxing it.
Knocking on wood. But yeah, so far everything's worked really well.
Yeah.
Don't call me again. I burnt down.
I knew that was coming for some reason.
If you get to the Tennessee line,
Lose my number.
Bristol and South, you're good.
Yeah.
Up into Virginia, you gotta call someone else.
Yeah, I gotta pay the $1,500 U-Haul.
Oh my gosh. Well, fingers crossed. Praying you make it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The car seems sorted out again.
Yeah.
She's a trooper, so it'll make it no problem.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Yeah, thank you for all the support. This has been huge. Stoked to have done this.
Helen was great. It was all great.
At limitless_Corey on Instagram. John.Ludwick on Instagram. Ludwick's Garage. Man, hopefully another episode soon. W108 will get moved down the road. Hopefully get some shop updates. Get some stuff in the shop. Auto Union project. Oh boy. Patreon link is in the YouTube videos description, possibly also in the podcast description as well. Can't thank you guys enough. I think there's almost 20 of you on there now. It just blows my mind you guys have come over there to support all the builds and this whole deal. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support there. I'm giving you guys exclusive access to stuff. You know, you guys knew about the W108 before I posted that publicly. The Auto Union, you knew that was going down and saw photos of that before that happened. All these episodes are going up early there, and cannot thank you guys enough for the support there. Huge shout out to the Bag Riders boys for supporting the suspension on the W108 build, as well as the Wheel Price guys for coming together and doing a really cool promotional thing for the wheels. My buddy Tony ultimately was the guy that I got the wheels from, the TH lines, the Schmitz on that car. Super happy with how that car came out. Bummed to send it down the road this soon, but it's going to help fund even cooler projects. So thank you guys for all the support. We'll see you in the next episode.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Let's get some food.
Do it.